Big show tonight. Okay, welcome. I am Dan, your host. Joining us in Menifee, California is Pam Adger. Welcome, Pam.
Welcome to San Francisco International Airport. Your assistance is requested in enhancing airport
Michael
security
Ellis is here. Hello, Michael.
possession of your bag.
Hi, Dan. Hi, everybody.
Pam is very quiet and shy. And then we also have Harold Carey Jr., who will be here at some point. We have Craig Shipp in Thurmont, Maryland. Welcome, Craig.
Yes, and I'm actually here.
Absolutely. And I don't know...
And I'm...
Go ahead, Michael.
I'm sorry, I'm here as well.
Excellent. So joining us is also from... I don't even know, are you in California? Where are you, Alan?
Yeah, I'm in San Francisco International Airport in California right now, getting ready to board my flight home.
And
where they have free Wi-Fi.
Where they have free Wi-Fi that seems to be working at the moment.
Right.
And you said you got dinner. Is there like a food court or a vending machine? I'm not sure what...
Airports are kind of upscale these days, Dan. It's a food court.
Cool.
You know, it's a long cry from the days when you had to actually walk out on the grass and climb the steps to your flight, which, you know, may have been the last time you took a plane, I understand.
It's been a while.
And back then, you couldn't look forward to getting strip searched.
Yeah, I didn't get the cavity searches then. Okay, so...
back from the plane yesterday, or last weekend.
Are we starting with what's in the thing here first?
Yes.
Okay, so Hangouts in an instant, video chat without downloading a plugin. Alan, you can explain this a little bit. We've
He's got announcements going in the airport, Dan. Let me give a shot at it, okay?
Go ahead.
So that when the first time you do a Hangout on a device, there is something called a plugin that has to be downloaded and installed. It happens automatically, and it's usually or very often pretty routine on most of the platforms. But for some people, it would cause trouble, and not uncommonly, you would have a problem even later with the plugin. Something would get corrupted, and you'd have to delete the plugin and then reinstall the plugin. So it's a piece of software coming from Google to make Hangouts work. As of this week, they've announced that the plugin is no longer necessary. It's apparently part of, I think, part of the Chrome infrastructure. And now I probably need Alan's help to know what else to say about it.
Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, it's actually not so much part of the Chrome infrastructure as Hangouts are going to be taking advantage of components that are built into Chrome, starting with the beta and developer releases currently available. And as soon as those versions get upgraded to the production version, which should happen within the next couple of weeks, we'll see the feature becoming available as part of Chrome. Now, the nifty part isn't that they took the plugin and put it into Chrome. It's that they're getting rid of the plugin completely and using WebRTC to provide Hangout functionality. So this is not a little thing. This is huge. This is major.
For folks who don't know, what is the advantage of WebRTC and plugin lists versus what we've been using?
Well, the biggest advantage of WebRTC in this case is that previously there have been several layers. So although we've got this plugin layer, we've got other layers about how it interfaces with the browser and how it overlays and so forth and so on. All of those layers get collapsed. So by being able to do it directly inside the browser itself, we can make a lot of savings possible. And those are savings in terms of speed, in terms of performance, in terms of how much CPU is used. So with WebRTC, this is a standard that's supported by Chrome and probably will be supported by a number of other major browsers over time. This essentially means that there's direct support for Hangouts as part of a web browser.
Could this
So-
lead to better quality as far as the video and frame rates and things like that?
Yes, in short.
Okay. Well, I'm all for it then.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited about them because the change. I'm having huge problems with entering Hangouts and having it be so incredibly slow, or like when I get a phone call in and it rings through the Hangout interface now, I can barely get the Hangout to open in time for the call to be answered before the person on the other end either gives up or the phone network gives up on the call and hangs up. So anything they can do to fix the speed is a huge
And
thing
Michael,
for me.
I'm also told that this improvement will also give you lighting just like mine. See how I'm lit up now? You will appear to be just as well lit once this plugin goes live. I mean,
That
this-
would be
Now, just
that
for,
would-
we linked.
Actually, no. You know, Craig makes light of that and laughs at that. But one of the things that we saw the team introduce a while ago were the Hangout effects, for example. So it could create softer lighting, create a black and white effect, do some of these live video changes.
Yeah, but what happens is that it.
Right. Go ahead. No, go ahead and finish.
No,
Pam.
I was just gonna say it slows down everything. It creates this. Truthfully, I can barely run Hangouts with no other windows open. I cannot look at the show agenda. I can't do anything if I'm in a Hangout. And between Chrome and Google Plus, they take up so much of my computer's resources, I just can't.
What
well, you've
this
got to
will do-
get yourself a 5-year-old Mac like the one I have, and it'll do it all.
Craig, you really don't want me to go there. You really don't.
That's what I'm using right now.
Okay,
I'm using
just
a 5-year-old Mac too, and it's slow as molasses and a piece of garbage, and other things that I can't say in a public airport.
it's
But to Pam, to address Pam's point, exactly. One of the things that by moving away from the plugin does is it frees up some of those CPU resources to do other things, and those other things could be plugins that do lower thirds in a better way. It could be video annotations that clean up the processing. It could be higher resolution. It could be 4K. It means essentially doing a lot of things that we just couldn't do before because the systems couldn't handle it. The systems will be better able to handle it now.
and if people want this, they have to download Chrome Dev or Chrome Canary.
No. Or Chrome Beta. This is it. By being in Chrome Beta, it basically means it's weeks away from being public. So if you want this now, yes, you need to be in Chrome Beta. If you're willing to wait a week or two, just wait. It'll automatically appear.
Now, will we know? Will it say anything? Will we know?
That's a good question. I don't know. I know that under some configurations, when you're using WebRTC, the tab in the browser has another icon to let you know that it's doing something live, in the same way that it lets you know when audio is playing in that
Like a
tab.
speaker, yeah.
I don't know if that's actually true in this case, but it seems like a reasonable thing to happen.
And welcome
Cool.
to Cliff Roth.
I don't know. I'll need to look at it. I'll need to look into that one.
Cliff Roth is here. It's been a while. How are you doing, Cliff?
I'm doing well, and yourself? It
Doing
has
well?
indeed been quite a while.
It has probably well over a year, I would
I
say.
think so. Yeah, probably. Yeah, because I
Cool.
think it was before my 6th child. So
Yeah, cool.
yeah, it's been a while.
All right. Can someone put the link if you don't have it, if you want to chime in on any of these stories? Okay, Google Plus Photos. You can edit your previous edits and auto awesome effects. I haven't looked at this.
Oh, I have. Have you seen the one today where they add the American flag over your face? Yeah, this is what they've done now. It's really an awesome auto effect. What you do is you tell it which flag do you want put over your face, and then you take a picture of your face, and if you put that in the comment box in your comments, it'll put a flag of your country over your face.
This is called the World
Useful
Cup
during-
effect, I assume.
Somebody had way too much time on their hands.
No, and this like would take half a day to implement, honestly. But this isn't the interesting thing that they're talking about in this case.
Yeah.
So what are the other big changes about video editing, about editing and unawesoming?
Well, one of the things that it's done, I just put up a what's that big round thing you call? What's that? Oh, I forgot what they call those. When you do a round picture in the round panorama, like a panorama.
A panorama
Yeah,
or a photosphere?
Photosphere. I did a photosphere, and they converted the photosphere to a beautiful picture, a complete picture. That's brand new. I've never seen that happen before.
Has been ours down.
Okay, the other thing that I know happened with the editor recently is that you now have essentially unlimited undos, and in fact it looked like some selective undos as part of the editor. So if you previously, made any change but a cropping change
Attention on the concourse.
or a
Attention on
resize
the concourse.
change,
Virgin America's Flight 918 with service
there
to
was
Las
you could
Vegas.
do an
Currently boarding all
undo,
groups and ROs.
but there was
If you're
no
on this
easy
flight,
way to
please make your way
to
236
redo only
1B
certain
for an
parts of
on-time
it.
departure.
Now,
Flight 918 with service to Las Vegas on Virgin America.
now what you can do
And
if
851B.
I assume you guys can hear this announcement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now what you can do is if you've applied a number of effects, you can remove those effects selectively. So it's even better than an undo. It's like, if you've done steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you can undo just step 3 from the whole thing, and it will re-edit the photo accordingly. I'll be honest, I'm not sure I've seen this in any other photo editor anywhere. Craig, have you seen this sort of thing?
Nope. Not that I've looked for it, but no, I haven't.
Alan, did I see that you could also do that across devices?
Yes. So if
I
I followed it
think-
correctly, and I haven't tested this, if you are doing editing on two devices and you switch between them, you could undo an effect. You could try something out on your phone, and then when you get to your desktop or your laptop, take a look at it again and see, did that actually look good? Oh, maybe this would have been better if I hadn't adjusted the colors in this way, and undo just that part. So that's really powerful and really neat. There are things that I like how the photo editor is working. I just wish they'd, finish it and put in some features that we actually need. This is a good feature, but it's not one that I think anybody's been asking for.
What, you mean to be able to undo a whole going way back?
You could always undo. There was always an undo.
But
What
you couldn't
this
go
is
back as far.
this is undoing something in the middle of it,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and that's
basically,
different.
but basically where they're headed with this is that whatever you do to the photo is not destructive. So you still always have the original, and you can still keep going back. And I don't know how many times I can go back and like Photoshop or whatever, but a lot of the tools out there, you can keep hitting undo, and you can keep going back several tasks, right? I don't know how far. But sure, the further you can go back, the better, because sometimes you do want to go back a ways.
To put this though in comparison, Craig, can you undo a change after you save the file and shut down your computer?
Right.
That's a good question. I mean, it depends on. I'm not a Photoshop expert, for example, but that's why people use layers and so forth, and they
Right.
don't collapse them and combine them all together, because that way they can, take off a
Exactly.
layer or whatever. So
Exactly. This doesn't
So
do
it's sort of automating that whole process, really, is what it sounds like it's doing. Which
Well,
is good.
yeah, they're approaching it in a slightly different way, but this essentially means that you can save a file, shut down your computer, switch to another computer, and
Right.
selectively remove changes that you made elsewhere.
So I did play with this, believe it or not. I made a whole bunch of photo edits from Big Basin on my phone and shared them, and then shut down my phone because it was acting funny. When I got home, I wanted to see how well my eyesight was because I used my my phone, and I was able to open up the picture, and it tells me at the bottom how many edits I did and what edits I did, and I'm able to click on the little pencil and undo it. So it's not using the actual undo button up on top. There's this little thing on the bottom that tells you what you originally did to the photo, and I'm on my laptop doing that. So it's a completely different device, and I was able to go in and check to see how I had edited the picture in the first place, and it's allowing me to undo it. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, if you're syncing everything across devices, then that makes sense. You should be able
Well,
to do an edit on one and then.
I had uploaded everything into Photos to begin with, so it was already in Photos. I don't have to sync it up because once I sign into Google, then it's available.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, that's basically what they're doing is they're saying that since everything is in the cloud, if you will, then you edit it on this device, and then you go to this device, and everything should be in sync. So that makes sense.
Craig, you make it sound like you're surprised that Google does this.
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, their whole thing is cloud computing. I mean, and if they're going to have the photos in the cloud, and if you're going to be able to edit the photo with multiple devices, then it would make sense that it would operate this way. I mean, in Aperture, for example, all the changes that you make are down the left-hand side, and you can just uncheck a box, and that'll undo whatever it is that you did.
And you know,
So-
Craig, that's a great segue to our next story. What's Aperture?
It's a photo editing program on the Mac,
Really?
similar to Lightroom.
Did something happen to it recently?
Now, as usual, the blogosphere is totally taking something that Apple's doing out of context and blowing it up into a major thing. Just like with Final Cut Pro 10, everybody, oh my gosh, Final Cut Pro 7 is gone, we can't do this, we can't do that, and Final Cut Pro 10 is like for consumers and it's not a pro program and so on. Of course, it turns out a few years later, Final Cut Pro 10 is much more powerful than 7. You can do things you never dreamed of doing in 7. It's much faster. It's better in almost every way. And most of even the naysayers back 2 or 3 years ago when this all happened are now like retrenching and backing up and admitting that they were wrong. What Apple's probably going to do here, and I don't know for sure, is they're going to roll, in effect, iPhoto and Aperture into this new Photos app, and it's going to be available on all devices, sort of like what we were just talking about, where everything's synced and so forth. And my guess is it'll be every bit as powerful as Aperture. We'll be able to do all the same kind of things that we've been doing in Aperture. It'll probably be easier to do it. It'll probably be faster and work better. It'll probably be better for the average person out there to use. Maybe the Stone Cold pros will want to use something like Lightroom, and of course there's always Photoshop for major editing, which is what people use now anyway. I just think that they're going to make it more mainstream, and ultimately my guess is it'll be a good thing. We'll see what happens. If they could always blow it, of course.
Did they actually bring in the features into Final Cut Pro 10 though that people are asking for? I mean, I remember people saying that multi-monitor support was totally beyond repair, that there were a number of pro features, not
Well,
just
the biggest
pro
thing at the beginning was
That's
multicam. The biggest thing was multicam editing. And what happened in the very beginning was it was pretty much gone. But there were ways to sync clips, and I actually have a video up on how you could very easily sync like 2 or 3 camera shots together and then in effect do a multicam edit. Then maybe 6 months later or whatever, they rolled into Final Cut Pro 10 a really cool multicam editor that just blew everybody away because it was real time. You could just click on what cameras you want, and it's very powerful. And that, like I say, started shutting down some of the naysayers. And then they slowly but surely rolled just about everything that the people were complaining about into Final Cut Pro 10, and the whole thing works a lot faster. I mean, it's just insane, the rendering in the background, the way everything works, the way you can mix and match. Like if I have a 30 frames a second clip and a 60 frames a second clip, I can just mix and match, just drag them right in there. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't care, and I just sit there editing in real time. So it's a pretty amazing program, and everybody just nixed it in the beginning. And I think that let's see what happens with this. I'm hoping that they do the same thing with this Photos app and bring everything together under that one app, if you will. And as long as I can still have separate libraries like I have now, as long as I can easily manage all my photos, keep them organized, keep them synced between my devices, I'll be a happy camper. That's what I want, is ease of use. I don't need a super powerful editor tool. Aperture does plenty. If it'll do even half of what Aperture does, it'll probably be fine. So, but I just think we have to wait and see what they come out with before we totally trash it.
Okay. Thanks for your take on that, Craig. We bumped that up mostly because we knew Craig needed to leave in a little bit, and because it was actually thematically related to photos, shockingly enough.
Does anybody else use Aperture? Am I the only one?
I don't. I mean, I know the friends of mine who are professional photographers who use Aperture are extremely worried because they were also people that used Final Cut Pro and certainly felt that they were being given the short end of the stick.
Now, do they still feel that way about Final Cut Pro now?
I haven't actually talked to them about it recently. For all I know, they gave up on Final Cut Pro and moved on to something else first.
Yeah, some did.
Although I know one of them teaches Final Cut Pro. I believe he actually stated, although he wasn't happy with the change, he thought it was great because it was making him money since he got to retrain people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I'd be interested to hear what their take is on it now. I'd be interested to hear what he has to say about it now, because it seems very powerful now. So, but anyway, it'd be interesting to hear what he has to say, because he's probably more of an expert on it than I am.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get an actual answer from him.
One of the new features that you might have missed is that when you make changes to these pictures with the Auto Awesome features, you picture exactly the way you want it with all the changes. You can copy that to another picture and apply all those changes to all your other pictures. You don't have to do them one at a time.
And you didn't think that was more important than flags showing up over your face, Harold?
And that's a powerful feature, and that's a feature that's also built into Final Cut Pro 10 that we were just talking about.
We should be clear, by the way, that's when we're talking about Google Plus photos.
Yes.
That you can essentially pre-create filters that are used, that you can use and apply across multiple photos. Thank you, Harold. No.
Yeah,
That's a very excellent point, Harold. Thank you.
And that's a great feature that these programs are starting to build in, and it's real easy to do in Final Cut Pro 10 as well. And that saves you a bunch of time, because if you have a clip and you have 3 or 4 clips that are the same lighting or whatever, and you tweak the one, and you can just copy those features and literally paste them onto the other clips, and they're there.
And the most important thing they stress is it never affects your original photo. All of these photos do not affect the original. Your original is always there.
Non-destructive editing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on, there was an interesting post by Danny Thomas? Why does that not sound correctly? Of search engine marketing. You know what? Maybe I should just actually, click on the link instead of trying to do this
Danny
by
Sullivan.
memory. Danny Sullivan of Marketing Land. I was close. No, I wasn't. Saying that looking at it, Google Plus may not be a ghost town, but certainly in terms of social referrals, it's not really doing much to help people. Has anybody else looked at this, and any thoughts on what this means, what it says?
Can I
is it
start out by
actually
asking a
providing
question?
any
What
useful
does
information at all?
mean?
What does what mean?
What does social referral mean?
It basically means that you're clicking off of Google Plus to go to wherever they're hosting the content. And really, from the beginning, Google Plus was never optimized for that. It was really, if you were relying on Google Plus for that, you're a fool. It was not good for that. It was good for holding conversations in Google Plus. Unfortunately, now it's not so good at that either, but that's beside the point. So yeah, Google Plus was never good for referrals. So people were like posting content and links to their content elsewhere, where that's not where Google Plus shined. It just was never good for that.
Why do you think it was not good for that, Cliff?
Because I think people were more interested in having the conversations here. It was a nice all-in-one platform where you didn't need to leave here. Everything was here. People were talking about stuff here. They didn't want to jump off of here and go elsewhere. I know I used to hate part of an article and go elsewhere to converse about it.
But it's not like people, will go and converse about a post from Facebook somewhere besides Facebook. You'll end up on the target page, and if you're going to converse about it there, your chances are good you're actually using Facebook's commenting system, or you're not going to converse about it there. You're going to come back and tell all your family, you read this idiotic post.
Yeah, but I think on Facebook it works slightly different because just the nature of the network is different. So I think it's much more likely for somebody to actually click and go read an article off-site than it was here. Why that is, I'm not entirely sure, but the culture was just different.
Well, I think that's more the point of what the story and what some people are saying about the story here has been, is that unless you're part of Google Plus's target demographic, i.e., you're an Android fanboy, you're not going to click elsewhere. If you're an Android fanboy, you're going to click on Android Authority and all of those. Right. They're seeing tremendous rates from Google Plus, for example. So it does boil down to, okay, so it's a target demographic problem, and that will of course prompt brands to wonder why they should be on Google Plus at all. Go ahead, Michael.
I use Google Plus every day. For some days an awful lot, and I'm forever clicking on links that take me off the site. I don't leave the site. I use the control key and click the link so that it takes me to the article in a separate tab. I read the article and then I close it and I go back to the conversation of the post where I found it to begin with, and that's where I hold my conversation.
Michael, for starters, just for your reference, you don't actually need to hit the control button since it will open it in a new tab on its own, unless you're using mobile.
Does it always work that way?
Yes. But okay. Looking just at the numbers that they reported from Shareaholic, they're saying that referrals from Facebook are 21%, while referrals from Google Plus are 0.08%. And that's amongst 300,000 websites in its network.
Wow.
So.
Well, that sounds bad.
Well, again, the question is, okay, what does that mean? Is that, it means, what does it mean?
Yeah, I have I get all the stats from my website, and it basically is the same thing. But I still, one of the things that people are missing is that Google's big into rankings, and so I have every single post that I make 4 posts a day, both on Twitter, Google, and Facebook, and I have tons of incoming links to my website from Google, and people who share those things on Google also have incoming links. So if it's not necessarily conversation, you do get a lot of incoming links from other people who share your post from Google, and that builds up your website's popularity on the rankings.
May or may not, depending on the links and depending on how Google treats them. And we really don't know how Google treats all these incoming links. People speculate that they know, but we really don't know how they give some links more weight than others. We speculate that it depends, like if it's a high traffic website that's linking to you, that they give more credibility to that. But we really don't know their secret sauce.
Well, the links, I'm not talking about from other websites. I'm talking about from other people. For instance, I get, like Chi Chu sometimes shares one of my things, and so I have that coming into my website. I don't know if important people have more power if they share your website with somebody else than another website.
Yeah, I don't know, but and like for example, Flickr. If you have a bunch of comments on Flickr and then you have links from there, those are all no follow links. So those don't help you any with Google Juice. So it just depends on who's linking to you and how they're treating them, right?
Well, the way to tell what's going on, if you go to Google Webmaster Tools, it has a really cool feature there. It shows you every incoming link from every source. So that's something that everybody should have if they have a website, is use the Google Webmaster Tools.
But even if you use their Webmaster Tools, I don't think they tell you definitively what links are positive for your rankings and what links are not, do they?
No, they give you a total amount of every single link from every single site. For instance, I have 2 sites that I own. One of them is eLearning 101, and I put a link to my Navajo Arts page on every one, and I have like 2,000 incoming links from eLearning 101 to my page because I put it in a, it's, you know, if you put it on a blog, it's on every single page if you have it on the right hand side. And so you have all these incoming links from different websites that I own.
Well, I've been told that can actually hurt you in some cases, so I don't know. Again, I don't think
it brings me up to number 1. I'm number 1 in every category that I link to, so it didn't hurt me at all.
Okay.
Welcome to
Any
San
final
Francisco
thoughts on this
International
while I
Airport.
listen to this announcement?
No,
Yeah,
I guess
Where's our fearless leader?
he's in the San Francisco airport.
Our fearless leader.
Thank you for helping.
Our fearless leader, when he returns, will regale you with stories about how he was up all night putting together his newspaper and then awoken by neighbors. So to spare you all from that, we're just going to keep on going with the show. How does that sound?
Anyway, yeah, to recap on the story before you leave it, so can we now definitively say that Google is absolutely a ghost town, or can we not say that? What's
I don't
the
think we're
conclusion
ready to
here?
do that.
We're not ready to concede that? Okay.
Oh, I'm conceding it. I'm one of the ghosts, but you know what? They've really screwed the magic here. They really have messed it up. This place is not what it was, and it's not improving.
Well, what's changed?
Well, first of all, as soon as they stopped showing you all the content from the people you wanted to see all the content from without having to actually get notified about them, they really messed up. They did that.
Okay, so that was about 2.5 years ago.
Exactly, and it's gone steadily downhill since then. Yeah.
And also, you can't find the Hangouts and everybody hanging out. Remember, you used to be able to go and look, and you'd see all the Hangouts. You could just jump into one and say hi to people.
Right.
I don't know how to do that now.
Notifications and chat was a dreadful mistake. That's a big pain. It made chat practically unusable for many of us. We just use Facebook's chat. It's so much more efficient. That's one of the problems. They've messed up photos really bad. The albums don't work good like they used to. So
No, Cliff, I gotta call you on that one. No, I gotta call you on that one,
well, I'm
Cliff.
talking from
They
the artist
never were
perspective.
good.
That's
never
not
worked
true,
good.
though. They used to work pretty decent.
No, they didn't. They were always crap. They were always. I'm sorry. I really need to be quiet when you say
They
that.
never, in the beginning 2 years, they weren't that bad. Using photos was pretty good. They were organized pretty easy.
No,
You know,
no,
you
no,
could
no,
go
no,
to
no.
somebody's profile, find their albums. It wasn't hard.
No, it was always a disaster.
And they've just gotten worse. Their notifications.
I got-
You're arguing about how bad it was.
I have to agree with Cliff, actually.
Photos were not that bad until they
it's
started
really,
spinning off
yeah.
albums. You know, they
Yep.
generate a new stupid album for every little post you make, which is stupid. You
Oh,
can't
that's
organize
wrong.
the albums. You
I
can't
hate
choose
that.
what you. It's just a mess. And so, from the artist perspective, I never had a problem with albums. They, you know, I would post my art in certain albums. They were easy to find, easy to reorganize. They weren't a problem. Then, see, I'm not a photographer. I don't do any of the photo editing. I don't give a crap about Awesome or any of that other nonsense. But just finding and looking at the uploaded artwork, that's like near impossible. So from the artist perspective, I used to toot this place as a great place to show off your artwork. I don't do that no more because they messed it up.
I'll agree with you that they messed it up, but it started out horrible and got worse. I mean, I always did. Craig is laughing at me, but it's true.
No.
It was bad. You see, and that's the only place that I disagree, was that I think the starting point was far worse than Cliff
Well,
seems
in the
to.
beginning, it was basically Picasa web albums, wasn't it?
Right, and then it was bad. When it was still tied to Picasa, it was bad. But then they made it so that you could do all that functionality here, and then it was good for a little while, and then they
But
screwed
you
it up.
couldn't do all that functionality from here. That was part of the problem.
You could for a little while.
Not hours? What? If so, I don't remember it.
But I suppose I guess it all depends on what you were using it for.
Yeah, that's
And
what's
I would concede that point. As a coming at it from the photographer point of view,
Right. So
it was always bad. There was no folder management. There was no way to organize. There was no way to really do anything that one would think was a logical thing to want to do with photo albums.
you were
And
able
then
to
they started creating random albums,
wait.
and it just got steadily worse from
To
there.
organize your albums, you were able to pick which one.
yeah.
Here you were. Why do you not think you were able to organize your albums? You used to be
Well,
able to. You can't now, but you used to be able to.
When you say organize your albums, drag the order that the albums are in? No, you could never do that. Drag
you-
the order that your photos in an album was in? You could sort of do that sometimes, except when it decided to ignore your settings. And if you could find the magic key to press to select your cover photo,
And to that, yeah, you're right. Ordering the albums themselves, I think you could have done that too, but I honestly don't remember.
no, you could
No,
never
you-
do it. It always put them in chronological order by some random chronological date that it picked.
Right? You used to either be able to use chronological, reverse chronological. Yeah, and
Yeah.
but organizing within the album itself was not a problem. Now you're lucky if you
No,
can even
it-
find the damn album.
It was always a problem. Sometimes it worked better than others, but it was always a problem.
But yeah, so there's a lot of combining factors that just made this place much less functional. And
Well, I mean, just to throw a number at it, this will transition to our next story. 3 years in, so 3 years in, the first year, I went to about 15,000 people had circled me, and I'm doing pretty much the same thing that I did in the beginning that I'm doing now. Nothing has changed as far as what I'm doing. I'm still posting the same old stuff. And on YouTube, my subscribers have tripled. I had about 2,000 subscribers. Now I'm like almost 6,000 in the last 2 years. In the last 2 years on this platform, it stayed exactly the same. It hasn't increased at all. So why would I be getting a lot more subscribers on YouTube, and that's a growing platform, and yet this one is sitting at the same exact
YouTube
number?
could be growing because of this place. Because I know the amount of channels I have subscribed is just because of Google Plus is, I would say, about 60% of the ones I subscribe to now are directly from finding them on Google Plus. So yeah, so.
So
Yeah, but it hasn't. But my point is, it hasn't helped the other way. It's not
No,
reciprocal.
yeah,
Well, no,
it's
hang on.
not going
hang
to
on a
help
second,
in a way because a YouTuber, why would they follow you on Google Plus? Because most likely they're going to want to see your videos, which they're already getting from subscribing to you on YouTube. It'd be redundant.
but here's the thing: isn't it really the same thing? If you're following, if 60% of what you're following is based on what you've seen from Google Plus, isn't that saying that Google Plus is doing something useful for you?
For YouTube, absolutely.
I said for you.
Oh,
not
yeah.
YouTube.
No, I mean, yeah, for me, but in far as YouTube goes, yes, because they're the same company. I don't look at it as really leaving the company. I just look at it, because it's still...
And I think that's part of the point is
Right.
that, it doesn't really, Google
That's one of the
Plus,
few things I think they've done right is the integration with YouTube. I actually like the new YouTube commenting system. I think it's far superior to what they
Except for a lot of them you can't reply to, Cliff. That's my only bone that I have to pick with them. is
Yes,
a lot of
I
them-
didn't like how they sliced it at that point in time. Anything before that, you couldn't reply to whether they were Google Plus subscriber or not.
No, but I mean, I get comments now, Cliff, that I can't reply to. So I get an email notification every time I get a comment because I like to reply to all my comments.
yeah.
So I'll click the little reply right in the email. It'll take me to the comment. The comment will be sitting there, and I can thumbs up it or whatever. I can't reply.
I think in some cases it's because it's putting it up as a comment, but the share itself was private. So because commenting and sharing has become equivalent. So if they're sharing it to a circle they don't have you in, we're not going to be able to comment because you wouldn't be able to see the post.
That makes sense, but see, the way I look at it is they shouldn't display that comment on my YouTube channel then because it looks like somebody's commenting and I'm not replying.
Are they displaying it to you when you're not logged in?
I'd have to check. You mean like in an incognito window?
Because you might be able to see it simply because it's your channel. Just like when you see here, somebody shared it, but if you go to their post, you go to their page, you can't actually see it. I kind of do that too. I don't like when people share my artwork and I can't go thank them because I can't see the post because they shared it with the circle I'm not in.
Actually, I would take a step back and say, Craig, are you seeing that they share it? Or sorry, are you seeing that they have commented, or are you seeing the comment itself?
I'm seeing the comment. I'm seeing the comment. I actually get an email, and it actually has a link for me to click on to reply. It says reply. I'll click on it. It'll take me to the video. The video will start playing. I'll pause the video, and then then they load in. Then the comments load in. The comment will be sitting right there, big as day. And a lot of the times I can just reply right there, right? But probably 25% of the time or 20% of the time, something like that, it'll be sitting there and it won't have a reply option.
That would bother me if you can see the comment. Under Cliff's theory that if they're sharing it privately, if they're sharing it privately, you shouldn't be able to see the comment.
That's my point. Exactly. And I don't think anybody should be able to see it if I can't reply to it. So the whole point is if they're commenting on my video, they might be saying something negative or whatever, or they might be saying something positive. Whatever they're saying, I want an option to comment on it.
No, I slightly disagree with that. I think it's perfectly reasonable for them to want to comment on it just to a couple of friends and you not to see the comment itself. I can understand why you'd want to see it, but I think it's reasonable for you not to see it under those cases. But if you can see it, you should be able to reply. Well, I guess the other thing, though, is there are certainly posts that we make that people disable comments on. But that's incredibly rare.
They could have their comments disabled. So it's quite possible you can see it because it's public, but you can't comment because they have comments disabled. That's quite
that's rare, though, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Well, but I'm getting it fairly frequently, and my take on it is those kind of comments should not show up in my YouTube stream. If I can't reply to them, and if nobody else can reply to them, and so on, then I don't want them there. And I should have a setting that I should be able to enable that, and just not have the comments that cannot be replied to show up, because that gives people free reign to say whatever they want, and then nobody can reply to it.
Right.
To me, that's good.
But contrary-wise, it can certainly be considered that under, we don't know how their algorithm works, but it may be that if comments are disabled, it may just treat that as a low-value comment, and more people wouldn't see it anyway.
All right. Well, we'll do some testing. I'm going to do some testing with Dan, and we're going to see if he can see some of those comments.
Well, that's actually. I just went to your page right now for that exact purpose.
You're looking? Okay.
Is there a specific video in?
I know there's some under the iPhone 5S review that's got like 300,000 views. I know there's some under that one.
All right, I'll check that one first.
So I don't want to derail us too much because we would like to end more or less on time tonight. Any further thoughts about again Google Plus is turning 3 tomorrow or Monday rather. Any further thoughts on your how you got? You know what, Cliff? Let's do it this way. How did you get started with Google Plus and when?
All right, I got started in the summer of 2011. I first heard about it because I was complaining about Facebook's changes at the time. I was bitching about that, so somebody's like, "Hey, you could always try Google Plus." I'm like, "What the hell's that?" And then someone said, "Oh, it's some social networking site that Google started." I'm like, "What the hell do we need another one for?" So I didn't try it then, but about a week later, and a bunch of artists that I know of, a couple of them had mentioned it. So I tried it there. The first Hangout was actually with a group of them. And once I saw the Hangout feature and I saw it was better than what I was using to video conference prior, which was TinyChat, I liked it for that purpose. And then as a fluke, I started speed painting people, and then things all blew up from there. But so yeah, that's where I started on Google Plus. So it was 2011.
Craig, how about you? How did you get started with Google Plus?
So now I get to name drop and plug all at the same time here. Lisa Bettany, Camera Plus fame, she invited me, and she was actually my friend on Facebook at the time, and I actually asked her for the invite because it was invite only at that time, and I knew that she was in there, and sure enough, she sent me an invite, and I got in, and the Hangouts was a thing that really caught my attention from a standpoint of creating content. And we started just from the very beginning doing exactly what we're doing now, but we were basically recording Hangouts locally and then uploading them to YouTube. So we were creating shows using Hangouts. And I still think that's the best feature of Google+. How
about you, Harold? How did you get started with Google+?
Well, I spend like all the time searching the internet for new stuff, and then I found out about it through my son, who he's up in Silicon Valley, and he found out about it first, and he had some friends who had invites, and so I called him and so my son sent me an invite from a friend. I got on there, and then after I got on for just a couple days, I met with Mark Olson, who was starting the longest Hangout with Maritz and a whole bunch of all the original people who did the longest Hangout, and we started doing that and started playing with it, and that was only about a week after it started that we were doing that, and then it was real cool. But right after we just got started, Chi-Chu came in with us and let us break the rule, which was a Hangout can only last so long, and he gave us some kind of power to let the Hangout keep going. It was so we basically started that thing and during the first week of it, and that kept going for 71 days.
Michael Ellis, how did you first find Google Plus? Okay, or what about
Sorry,
Pam?
I couldn't
How
get
did
my
you
mouse.
find- Oh, there you go.
I'm sorry, guys. My mouse wouldn't respond to get the icons on the Hangout window disappear, and if you don't do some magic, they don't reappear when you move your mouse. Anyway, so you asked, how did I get started on Google Plus?
How did you?
I wish I could remember who invited me. I came in right at the very beginning, though, at was it July of 2011, I think? And I started using it, and I just immediately liked it better because I liked it better than Facebook. And I had been drifting away from Facebook anyway because of the changes they were making and randomly resetting my privacy settings, which really made me angry. So I started using Google+, and I immediately found the engagement to be better for me. Like, I would have real conversations with people on topics that interested me. Suddenly I started finding people that were interested in the same things I was interested in, instead of only rediscovering my high school friends. So I enjoyed it for that, and I stayed with it since then. And probably the biggest thing I've done with it so far is the language community, because now we have a community of over 70,000 people who are interested in learning languages other than their first language. And so that's been exciting, and it taught me a lot about social networking and about marketing through internet means. And now I'm working on rebuilding my consulting business using these tools.
So I think those are some great examples, actually. Kadeus, how about you? How did you get started with Google+?
I remember I had a friend who was letting me know that Google was starting a social network, and I was like, oh God, why is the other social network? I was anti-Facebook, and I didn't want to do anything else. But the more he described it to me, he kept calling it Google Me, actually. And the more he described it to me, the more I started getting interest, having been to be able to control certain things and only send blasts out to certain circles and stuff like that. And so I was like, okay, well, that sounds like something I'd be more interested in. And so then I waited around for about a year for it to release, and when Google Plus finally started going into beta mode, and then that's when I fought to get an invite. I fought hard, and I finally got in, and I've been here ever since. I love it. So.
Well, when I see this thing going, like say that it's not a social network, but what I see this thing going and taking over is in business and education. I think this will be the #1 business and education tool, and not a social network.
I don't see the difference between the two, but okay.
Right. That's what a social network is.
What I'm saying, right now, with all these new tools that they have for businesses, if you look at the trends, right now, over 70% of all new installations in schools is with Google Apps and Google Chromebooks, and businesses are the same thing. All the people are moving away from the Windows-based and stuff and moving to Google. It has nothing to do with Facebook. Facebook is going to kind of stay the same as a social network, but if Google takes over all the education and all the business, it's just going to completely eliminate, well, not eliminate Facebook, but it's just going to overwhelm with all the users.
Take over in the business sphere?
Yeah, it's tremendous increases in the business field right now.
They're going to have to do a lot of things different, though, if they're going to bring the Facebook, over.
Yeah, that's.
No, I don't mean anything to do with Facebook and the social networking. I'm talking about just people using the system.
Right, but as from a business perspective, that is a ridiculously tough sell. I know because I've tried to sell it. It's just, yeah, they'll laugh you. They'll literally laugh at you, because right now Facebook numbers blow Google Plus's numbers out of the water.
Yeah, but one of the things
competition.
Why is it every time I start speaking, somebody starts shouting? One of the things I'm seeing is certainly when it comes to good grief, someone else.
Usually
we have a comment from Pam. Pam, take it.
Yeah, let me just read Sai's comment. I didn't get an invite for G+, so I used a vulnerability that allowed multiple people to join under the same invitation.
I think that's kind of how I did too.
Yeah, I love that. I love that comment. I joined Google Plus because my 18-year-old daughter had an invitation. She got an invitation from someone at school. It was July 2011, and so I asked her if she would invite me, and she did, and then I blocked her. As soon as I started posting raunchy stuff, I'm like, oh no. So that's it.
Okay, they've stopped shouting for the moment, so let me try this again. I think one of the I can see from an external point of view, business to consumer, I don't think Google Plus is getting a huge amount of traction, and certainly not the stream part of Google Plus getting much traction. I see Hangouts are still gaining traction when it comes to business to consumers. I see Sign-In is getting a lot of traction when it comes to business to consumers. I see some of the other infrastructure that's part of Google Plus, like Moments, are gaining traction when it comes to app developers. I'm kind of curious how business internal is dealing with Google Plus. I mean, we've seen a lot of tools that have been rolled out for them. I'm kind of curious if those are actually being used or not. So that's a big question. I signed in to Google Plus on day 2, quite literally day 2, after pestering all of my friends at Google for an invitation, and we're getting more applause behind me now. And I think I wanted to switch over because I really, I was very intrigued by the concept of circles, and it very clearly fit into my model of social networks. Unlike Facebook, which seemed to just lump everybody together, and Twitter, which lumped everybody and everybody else together, Google seemed to demonstrate that they understood how people really interact with other people. And that was incredibly appealing to me. So I gave it a try and got sucked in by a lot of the technical aspects of it, and kept getting sucked in by the technical aspects of it. And that's, pretty much where I ended up today.
Well, one of the things that we're pointing out with, you guys are, both of you are right in this instances with Facebook and Google. With Facebook, all the businesses are using Facebook for advertisement. That's where it just completely blows out Google+. But for using it as part of their business, I think Google's going to be taking over in that particular line.
Well, Harold, you mean like using the tools that are part of Google Plus and incorporating them into business activity, not advertising per se.
Yes,
like
advertising is way up on Facebook.
Like the enterprise standpoint, where they're actually in competition with Microsoft and not with Facebook at all.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a completely.
Yeah.
In that case, you may very well be right.
I'll give you an example of what happened to me with Google Plus. I was up to 10,000 people on Google Plus followers, and I had zero I had 0 people on Facebook, maybe 30 or 40. So what I did is I put my page on Facebook. My Navajo People page was starting off with 0. Now, as of this week, I'm at 80,000 on Facebook, and I'm still at 10,000 on Google Plus.
Wow.
Well, everybody's there, and everybody uses it, and everybody says they don't use it, and everybody says they're leaving, and everybody says all the kids are using, and the kids don't use it anymore, and they all say this, but they're all there using it.
Craig, they're not.
Everybody I know is there.
How old are the people you know, Craig?
All ages. All ages.
Everyone I talk to under the age of 20 doesn't want to be there. And most of them have left. No, they haven't left for Google Plus.
Are you referring to Facebook?
Well, I'll tell you, they sure
as a father of a teenage daughter, I know for damn well sure she's using it with her friends. So, yeah.
They sure do tag photos and share them and so forth. You take a real good photo of them.
Haven't left Facebook at all. They might have added additional networks, just like we use Google Plus at the same time as using Facebook.
All of my friends with kids under 20 said they've left Facebook.
That's maybe what the kids want them to think.
No. Literally everybody go to other Facebook properties, Instagram and all the other stuff, but they're not using Facebook. The consensus is that Facebook is for old people.
So have they?
Nobody wants to do that anymore.
So you're telling me that they've shut down their Facebook accounts, they've left it.
No, why would they shut down their Facebook accounts? They just leave it.
And if you take a really good photo of them at an event or whatever, and you share it on Facebook, that they don't tag themselves and they don't share it and they don't download it, that I'm just hallucinating when I see them doing all these things.
If you took the picture of them, not only will they not tag themselves, they'll probably disown you. We're talking teenagers here.
That's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing they're all over the photos.
That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I'm still seeing plenty of use by that age group on Facebook. I
mean, I'll literally get hundreds of shares and thumbs up, and they'll be just all over them.
Well,
if it's a really good photo, it's got to be a good photo, but they'll jump all over it if it is.
I think there's.
It might not be their primary source, but they're still there, still utilizing the site.
Yeah, this is the classic argument you have when something is in decline, because the people arguing that it's declining have to make the case that it's going down, and the people that are making the case that it's still the primary thing have the numbers still behind them because they're declining, but it's still monumental. It's still huge, which it is. So no one can. What Alan is saying is people are leaving. I believe that's true, but what you're saying, Cliff, and Harold, I think Harold said this too.
Right, because it's
and
a
Craig,
slow offtake and not a giant mad rush. Hey, everybody's gone tomorrow.
There's not an exodus leaving.
Yeah, it's
There's
not
a
like a
billion
MySpace exodus where it was pretty much dead within a couple short span.
Right, but it is that. But people are definitely leaving, and at least every kid that I've run into in California doesn't use Facebook. The question is why.
But see, you're hanging with hipsters, and the hipsters are leaving, and they think it's cool to leave and so forth. But you all don't represent real America.
Craig,
real America is still there.
Craig, I can once again assure you that I do not represent hipsters, and I represent real Americans.
You're wearing Google Glass, for God's sakes.
Yes.
And
you're not a hipster.
Both people arguing for Facebook being lost are both wearing Google Glass.
Yeah.
Craig, do I look like a hipster? I'm not the one with the beard.
I hate to tell you, but
hey, wait a second.
I hate to tell you, but you're hip, okay?
No, you're trying to say Google Glass is hip?
Yeah, and you just left Google I/O. You're as hip as they get.
You're trying to say glasses? Really, what planet are you on, Craig, to think the
they're
glass is
definitely
hip?
not hip.
No, Craig, I'm talking about people that I know and work with from Maine to Virginia.
They're all hipsters, Alan.
There are hipsters in Maine?
Yes, you all are in a bubble. You're in a tech bubble.
And I'm assuming the majority. I'm assuming that the majority of UCI students are also in a bubble, huh?
The ones that you know are hipsters. They're cool.
I pretty much know the whole entire university. So.
Oh, come on.
The whole entire university is just.
You get around, big guy. I knew you
I
got
sure
around,
do.
but I didn't know to what extent.
Oh, Alan, did you get a new watch?
Yeah, you
I want
got
to see a new watch. If you got a new watch.
Yeah, it's a new watch.
All right, well that's perfect. Let's roll right into the next story.
He's not a hipster or anything, you know. He's got a
Well,
freaking.
that works perfect because we can roll right into the next story. So, Alan, tell us about Google I/O. Or you want
tell
me
us about the watch.
Yeah.
Well, for starters, we're going to talk about the watch in much more detail on Monday night's show. That's Google Plus. That's our Android Week. That's at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, where we talk about all stuff Android, including.
Can anyone watch that show? Can anybody watch that show you mentioned?
Anybody can watch that show, hipsters and non-hipsters alike.
Okay.
So, did you get the one that does your heartbeat or the one without the heartbeat?
We're going to talk about that on Monday's show.
He doesn't have a heartbeat.
Well, one of them has a little heartbeat on the back.
Yes, the Samsung has a pulse rate monitor. The LG does not have the pulse rate monitor. I went with the LG because, quite honestly, I don't trust Samsung to actually, support their product.
That's a cool-looking watch. Can you hold it up again?
Sure. It's a pretty actually generic-looking watch, Craig.
Pretty hip.
I can read the numbers.
What's that like that looks like a banner across the bottom? What's that?
That was a banner across the bottom. That was a notification. And it was telling me that I had a notification that I had a Google Plus post. And if
Can you hold it up again so I can see that?
Sure.
Cool.
And so the watch has to be charged every day. I heard the battery's just a one-day thing.
Let's see. So far, this battery has lasted for about 8 hours, and it's down to 72%.
Okay.
So, yeah, it needs to be charged every day, but it comes with a dock. You just put it on the dock. It just sits right there.
I mean, I charge my phone every night, so what's wrong with charging your watch every night?
Well,
it's usually you don't charge your watch every night, so it's something new.
Well, yeah, this is an electronic watch. This is a computer is what it is.
Yeah, it's a computer. It's not a watch. It's a computer.
yeah.
So what can you do with it? What can you do?
Let me finish up. To be honest, the power consumption on it is much lower than I would have expected. It seems to be fairly good at conserving its power.
So what can you do with it? Run down.
You can tell time.
Okay.
What else do you want from a watch? let's put it this way.
Tell us about Android L.
Worn one
I-
in like 5 years at least.
I can do everything on it that I can do on my Glass except anything related to pictures. So it's essentially a stripped down Google Glass.
And it's Google Now. It's basically a Google Now. It has all those little things on Google Now.
Does it have audio? I mean, can you receive a phone call with it?
No, it
You
will
can do
notify.
that. You can do that with Google Glass, can't you?
That's true. So there's another thing that it can't do that Google Glass does. It will tell you when it receives a phone call, and you can choose whether to answer the phone or not using it, but it actually answers it using your phone.
Yeah. See that's where it leaves me.
Wait, so
I
do
would want to be able to answer the call right on the phone.
So
No, I think
right on the watch.
So Craig, they have that. It's called the Galaxy Gear. So you can definitely get that, but then you lose access to Google. So the question is which is more important? Are you wanting more of your Google Now notifications and everything else relating to software, or do you want to answer the phone up with the
When it
watch?
comes to Craig, I think we know
you
the answer.
actually need
I'd wait until I can do both.
that functionality?
I'll wait until I can do both and get it. Yeah.
Like, is the watch completely useless to anybody who doesn't own an Android phone?
Oh, he's got sound in the background.
Sorry, that was a recurring notice. Yes, that's another thing. Unlike Glass, it requires you to be tethered to an Android phone. In fact, it has to be Android 4.3 and up.
So you have to have the Android phone. So doesn't the watch just become a redundant piece of hardware? What the hell do you need it for? Your phone's right there. Are you that lazy you can't pick up your phone and look at it?
Well,
But
no,
it's not about. Well, wait.
no. If
Okay.
you're active and you're moving about, your phone's in your pocket. You can glance at your watch. I mean, I can see that. But
Maybe it's because I haven't worn a watch in since I've had a phone. It seems redundant.
So Cliff, let me ask you a question. I mean, your smartphone is it can do everything that your desktop computer does. Can't you just why do you need this phone? Because your desktop computer does it all, doesn't it? They'll both tell you when you get an instant message. So why do you need both?
My computer makes a really lousy phone.
Cliff, I'll give you an
Your phone
example.
makes a really lousy phone.
Cliff, I'll give you an example why you might want information on your wrist. Tomorrow I'm going out and I'm covering an event. It's a Civil War reenactment. I'm going to have a ton of camera gear around my waist. My phone will be there. All kinds of stuff will be there. I'll be running around. I'll be setting times where I got to interview this guy at a such and such time over here. I got to be here for the Canon demonstration. And all the time I'll be looking at my watch and checking the time and making sure that I don't screw up, right? And so I use my watch constantly. So some people use a watch,
Right.
some people don't. Some people don't have anything that's time sensitive going on throughout the day. I happen to have a lot of things that are very time sensitive, so I have to have a watch. So if I had a watch that I could also glance and see my email, that would be okay with me.
One of the advantages that they showed with that is it has a speaker in it, so you can say, "Okay, Google, what time is it in Japan?" Or you can say anything you want, and it tells you on the watch. So even though you can't use it as a phone, you can bring up anything you want, and you can talk to it and ask it any question, and it brings it up.
Yeah, see, I can see using some of those features. I really would want one though that I can do a quick phone call, because I do get irritated when I've got my phone on mute. Like if I'm at an event, for example, my phone's always on mute because I don't want it to interrupt whatever the heck I'm doing. But sometimes I'll get a call, it'll vibrate, and I'm not in the middle of doing something, and I wouldn't mind looking at my watch and seeing who's calling and being able to quickly answer and say, "Hey, I'm at this event. I'll call you back at 4 o'clock," or whatever. I mean, that to me would be a big plus. It would be a very quick thing. Yeah.
Two things about that one. The first problem is it probably creates an extremely poor experience when you're dealing with phone calls, because the speaker is essentially going to be on speakerphone, and the microphone is going to be picking up the broad surrounding. So it creates, if you can picture what it would be like if you had a speakerphone everywhere that you went.
Pretty good. Speakerphone. My phone. I use my iPhone on speakerphone a lot, and it works okay, especially for something real quick.
Now, and you make a good point about
conversation here.
Good point about the quick. No, that's a valid point. I think the problem is that a lot of people would use it not for quick conversations, and it would be a poor experience.
Yeah, then
the other thing,
use case.
The other thing that it does is it does let you do a quick reply, So if the phone call is ringing, you can look at it and scroll and send them a text message back automatically. So you essentially would decline the call and immediately send them a message saying, "Sorry, I couldn't take the call. I'm in the middle of something." And you do
Now,
that essentially with one touch.
now, do you have to use canned messages, or can you dictate the message?
No, it's can. You know what? I know it's canned messages. It wouldn't surprise me if you could also dictate a message, but I'm not positive on that point.
Yeah, I mean, if I could dictate a quick message, that would be the next best thing. But
even still, Craig, you can still dictate the message after the call. After the call is rejected, you can say, "Okay, Google, send them to Bob Jones. I'm on my way. Or I'm on my way. I'm busy. I'll call you back." You can still do that. It's not stopping you from doing that.
you can still do that through the watch.
Yeah, you can do that part through the watch. You just can't actually take the call, but you can do Hangouts and instant messages and
That's
text.
the next best thing. But I would just as soon be able to take the call real quick and be able to deal with it right then and there. Say, "Hey, listen, I'm in the middle of an event. I'll call you back at 4." And we're done.
Craig, you make a valid point and you give a valid use case. I think what Google has done in this case is something very Apple-like, and that's say, even though there are some uses for it, most of the uses are bad uses. Not all of them, but most of them are bad uses. Therefore, we're just going to deny it. Therefore, we're not going to allow the feature at all. That's a very Apple thing to do, is to make sure to make sure we prevent people from doing something stupid, utterly stupid. We're also going to limit what you can do the way you can use that feature in a positive way. Anyway, guys.
Apple. Normally, they throw it all out there.
Yeah.
No, they don't. Apple?
No, Google. No, I said Google normally isn't like Apple.
Traditionally, they're not, but they've been learning a lot of lessons. I don't want to dwell on the watch. Can we move on to something else as soon as this announcement is over?
So what about Android
I have to
L?
go,
You
so
wanna
I'll
talk
see you
about
guys.
Android L, Alan?
Bye, Harold. So I don't have too much to say about Android L because I didn't really take a close look at any of the sessions about it. But there's a lot of interesting stuff that sounds like is being offered as part of it when it comes out. And we'll cover some of those on Monday.
This really does sound like a Monday. all this whole section actually sounds like a Monday story.
No, there's a lot of stuff that happened
What time is that show, and how do people find out? How can they tune in to see it?
That show is Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, on YouTube Live and Google+. Follow Dan McDermott because he seems to want to be able to tell you all of these things.
So that's in the same time slot as Hooping Live, hoopinglive.com.
Somehow I have a funny feeling we have different demographics, but that's just a guess.
Okay.
There was a lot. This is all at I/O. This is all happening from I/O. There were a lot of really, really interesting things that were totally unrelated to Android at I/O, shockingly enough. I think the most interesting one, which is actually vaguely related to I/O, was Cardboard. Cardboard is, without a doubt, the coolest thing that came out of Google I/O this year.
And so, did you get your cardboard, and what did you use it?
I did get my Cardboard. In fact, I picked up a couple of other ones as well. What Cardboard is, it's a virtual reality, a set of virtual reality glasses, a 3D viewer that works with your smartphone, which is why it's vaguely related to Monday's show. If you remember Samsung, if you remember Samsung about a month ago announced they were going to have a VR viewer. They were working with Oculus Rift on one. They would sell the hardware, would plug into your Samsung phone, all sorts of great things. This looks a lot like that, except it was made for, a few bucks, literally out of cardboard, and a couple of plastic lenses and a couple of magnets. And they give all the details for how to make it yourself. It's conceptually a really cool idea. It works incredibly well. It's pretty neat. So other things while I have the chance about I/O, while the speaker is not going off. A lot of what I/O is for me is meeting people, reconnecting to people, and this was a great time for that. So, not just the other developers that I work with, but a lot of the people at Google who I work with. It was great to just, run into some of them in the halls, chat about things. It was great to meet up with a lot of the Glass developers and developer relations people, and kind of get a sense of what they were doing and where they were going. And it's very clear that although Glass wasn't mentioned in the keynote, everything about Wear that we're seeing was heavily influenced by the Glass team, and vice versa. The two teams are working very closely together on their products. One of the things we heard very frequently, not just regarding Wear and Glass, but about all of the products, is that Google is really taking a focus of you're going to use the right tool for the right job. And that may be a laptop or desktop, it may be a phone, it may be a tablet, it may be Wear, it may be Glass, it may be your car, it may be your TV, it may be any one of a dozen different form factors. All of them are useful at the right place and at the right time, and Google wants to make sure they are helping provide those tools to be there. So, when they were talking about Android Auto, they weren't saying, your phone gives you no use. They were saying that your phone provides a lot of use, and we need to find ways to make it more useful and safer. And that's what Android Auto is all about. It's bringing Android into a new form factor in a way that's appropriate for that form factor. And then there's Android TV, which I don't know what that is, except for the fact that they feel they need to try this again, because everyone's trying this again. But the concept across the board is the same. Deliver the right tools, the right place, the right time. Understand your users better so that you can deliver a better product. I'm not sure if Cliff is trying to say something by waving this pen out at me. Is he threatening me? Is he threatening me? I challenge you to a duel. No. So, I don't know.
He's working on artwork.
So that's what, that was, I think, the big message behind I/O was to me, is that, Google is providing an incredibly wide range of offerings, everything from your watch to your TV to your car to the biggest data centers in the world, and all of that is at our disposal. So, I don't know. I can ramble on and on about I/O, because I/O, the things that I saw there were in some ways truly amazing. You know what? Let me highlight one thing that that's actually carried over a lot in some debate since. There was a lot of controversy about how Google Plus wasn't mentioned in the keynote, while it had been for the past 2 years under Bikram Dotra's rule. A lot of people were extremely concerned by this. Hang on a second. Okay, so there was a lot of concern that the lack of mention of Google Plus in the keynote was, yet another indication that Google Plus was on, imminent termination. And I don't think that's true. I think what we see is Google I/O used to be Vic's baby. He injected Google Plus into Google I/O, somewhat inappropriately in some ways, I felt. And now that it's gone, people, non-developers are concerned. Developers were only concerned in the sense that it means there's no fixes to the Google Plus API, which it desperately needs. Google Plus was all around the convention. We saw it on just about every product that indicated what Google technologies it used. Everyone used Google Plus. There were sessions about Google Plus sign-in. So it was there. It was very clearly there. Any further questions about me and I/O? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? Okay. I guess the next topic on our list is while this was all going on, and partly to quell some of those Google Plus myths, there was an interview by the New York Times with Larry Page and Sundar Pichai. Anyone else read the story? I've read excerpts of it, but I haven't read the whole thing yet. Oh, come on. Nobody else read this? Well, we're having a grand old conversation tonight. So, when it came to Google+, when he was asked about it, Larry was very enthusiastic. He said clearly Google+ and the Google+ stream is important to Google. The social connections are important to Google. So it's not just the sign-in they're paying attention to, it's all of the social signals, all of the connections, all of these other things, all of these other benefits that they get from the stream. It's clear this is a product that they're going to be continuing work on. Anyone have thoughts on that?
I'm
glad-
excited to see what they do. I mean, I think there are issues, and hopefully, let's see what they do. We talked about some of them tonight.
Okay. So I'm flipping through some of the questions and answers now. There's a question about Google's approach to building hardware. Since they bought Nest, they bought Dropcam recently, but they sold Motorola. So there was some question about that. The way, and this was Sundar answered that by saying, we do hardware where we think we need to guide the industry, which is why they do things like the Nexus. He didn't say this, but I think this is why they did things like Glass as well. Quoting him, philosophically, we're deeply committed to working on an ecosystem at scale. Nest had a very strong team. They think Nest was a way that they could lead that sort of building those ecosystems. So that's kind of, it sounds like, where they're aiming at when it comes to software, when it comes to hardware, is they're willing to do hardware where it makes sense for them to do so. And for commodity items, it doesn't sound like they're really looking to jump into the hardware world. But for stuff that's on the leading edge, where they need to prove something with the hardware they're making, it sounds like they're going to continue to do so. Is that your read on it, Cadeas?
That's kind of how I took it. I mean, yeah, that's kind of how I took it. I mean, I'm sitting here kind of looking through this right now, looking through everything that they covered, and yeah, that's pretty much how I took it.
Yeah, when asked about Google+, is social as important to you as it was 2 years ago? And Larry said, yes, if anything, probably more important. We have a very excited, dedicated community. Dren, I'm sorry that Craig just left, because he's been asking for 2 weeks now to hear a clear and straightforward commitment from the top. And here it is.
And I think the main thing a lot of people forget about Google Plus is that Google is still trying to build that social identity, build an entire life and your whole entire ecosystem. I'm sorry, your whole entire life and identity right into this particular thing. So even if the stream disappears, which it doesn't appear to the way he's talking, you still have elements of Google Plus that is so deeply integrated that it isn't going anywhere. Google Plus sign-in is a perfect example. Look how many apps and software that came out that uses in websites. They use Google Plus sign-in. So it's here to stay regardless of whether people want it to or not. They've been calling for the death for the longest time. But it's not happening. It's here to stay.
So he had an interesting comment when asked about the right to be forgotten. I kind of like this quote. I think it would have been better to have more of a discussion about what to do and how to do it. We could have arrived at a more practical place than a court ruling, and that's quoting him. The previous system, where content is removed at the source of publishing, means that once it's removed there, it's removed for all other services. So that's an interesting point. And I think that, it's something that we've discussed several times on the show, is that, this basically means that it's not really the right to be forgotten, it's the right to be not indexed. And that's a far different issue.
Yeah, and I don't see why they chose to target Google in this scenario as opposed to actually going to the people who are actually publishing it. There's services out there like Reputation.com that will go out and have your information removed from certain sources and stuff. Obviously, that's not in the UK. That's in the United States. But I mean, something like that should have been set up for the UK, where they could, so that way the guy that made the big complaint could actually have the actual source remove it as opposed to having Google just remove indexing it, which means other engines can still index it. So it's I kind of agree with them that like the UK is going about it the wrong way.
Well, it's not the UK, it's Europe. It's the EU.
Yeah, I'm sorry, EU. That's what I meant.
Okay. Any thoughts from anybody else about Larry and Sundar's replies to the New York Times? Is there anything else that jumped out at you in the article, Cadeas?
No, that was really the Google Plus thing is what I was looking forward to. So just to hear that lets me know everything.
Okay. So some of the other stuff I already touched a little bit on Cardboard at I/O. You know, like I said, I think it was the big surprise.
You think Cardboard was a big surprise? I thought Android TV and Android Auto was kind of the big thing.
They were. I said big surprise, not the big thing. I mean, you got to remember, everyone knew that Android Auto and Android TV were coming. Everyone knew it was coming. And honestly, you know, there was nothing surprising about Android Auto. There was nothing really big about Android Auto. I could have, covered it in 2 minutes. And certainly when it came to Android TV, I really don't understand what the big deal there is. Well, you know what? You were a Google TV user. Probably still are.
Yeah.
Can you explain to me why anyone cares about Android TV and how it differs from Google TV? Because it sure as hell wasn't clear to me.
If you're a big fan of Google TV, Android TV is the improved version of it. Only thing really that it seems to have brought is the ability just to build the apps the same way you build them. It's more for developers because it's basically you can build the apps the same way you build them on other platforms. Yeah, that's what I mean, like so the phone and all that. As opposed to before with Google TV, you had to have this special thing. There was a lot of limitations. You was in Honeycomb, and it was all this stuff. So that's kind of the new thing. And I think more for the TV and the car, saying here's the platform, go build for it. So I can see why you can say that there's nothing big about Android Auto, but it's not until software developers build something that worth it that's going to make it become this shining star. And same with the TV. I think the TV, Apple TV's got the app squares and the whole 9 yards, and then even the Xbox is making it so you can plug the HDMI straight into the box and then put their menu up and all that stuff. But I think the game system part of it, and then the fact that they're making the platform so people can develop for it, is in the long run where this will shine. I don't think it's just going to shine with them walking on stage because we've had TVs for 40 years. We've had cars.
I think what bugs me about Android TV is they kept trying to paint it as something revolutionary in TV. And I don't see it. You know, when the Chromecast hit, the Chromecast felt like something different in TV. It felt like a brand new take on it. It was saying, your TV is just the display port, and your mobile devices are controlling it in new and innovative ways. What it sounded like they were telling me when it came to Android TV was, these old ways we had of controlling our TV, yeah, we like those. We're going to stick with them. And I'm not convinced that's the right approach. I mean, the screenshot that he kept showing was something that boiled down to, you use your D-pad to cursor around a bazillion squares. Is that really a good way to interact with your TV? I just, I don't know.
But remember, you still have Google Now on there, so you can still bust up and say, hey, give me search blankly blank of who, show me videos of blank.
Well, doesn't this thing require that you have some kind of compatible device, compatible TV? I mean,
no. No, because
You
there
sure?
could be set-top boxes. The
There's
point
set-top boxes, and then there are the actual TVs where it's built in.
right. The point of this is that
So it's
you have
it's a Chromecast. It's a Chromecast that's more expensive.
The way I would define it is that it's the Chromecast and Google TV actually merged into one. That's kind of how I would define it, with the splash Apple TV.
Well, what do you need it for? If you have cable, what's the purpose? I don't get it. What are these?
Basically, it's taking the it's taking, how do you explain it? It's taking
Here's the way I would explain it. Right now, Pam, your cable box has an operating system underneath it. Now, it was one that was built by that cable box provider. Your TV has an operating system underneath it somewhere. In the same way that once upon a time, every cell phone had an operating system underneath it that was made by that cell phone manufacturer, and most of those have gone away to be replaced by Android, by cell phones by different manufacturers, but with Android sitting on them as the operating system. What Google is saying is that, hey, we did this for phones, we can do this for TV-like devices too, and that includes cable boxes, it includes TVs, it includes game consoles, it includes a bunch of things that attach to a TV or a part of a TV. They're unifying them all under this Android TV concept. So you'll see set-top boxes. We already saw the first ones of them, or the first one. You'll see TVs that have it built in the same way that you see TVs that have Roku built into it. You'll eventually have TVs that have Android built into it as the thing that controls everything. So on one level, no, you're not going to see a difference at all, and on another level, you're going to see the difference because it will just do more and be kept updated more. So right now, if you bought a TV within the past 2 years, for example, it has Netflix and it has YouTube, but you can't update those really. And Netflix and YouTube would really like you to update so you get access to better streaming video in both of those cases. That's something that will be possible with the new Android TV, at least in theory.
I think the search portion of it is probably the best thing. Bringing that search portion up, where you can actually, when you search for something, it's searching all your sources: Hulu, Netflix, HBO Go, and then just traditional TV to find whatever you're looking for. I think that's also a good thing.
Does it actually search all your sources, or is this a Kindle Fire TV thing?
It used to search it on Google started backing out, and it appeared that it was coming back.
Anyway, we'll talk about this more on Monday night. Oh yeah, no, this started out as Cardboard. Cardboard was pretty cool. It really was the smash hit of the show. So other stuff that was at I/O. This was something that I stumbled upon, and this is one of the things I really love about I/O is that you can stumble upon really nifty things that nobody else tells you about. You need to spread the word about them. So there was a kiosk about helpouts, which I've had mixed opinions on. I think a lot of people have very mixed opinions on. And one of the things they were talking about in the context of helpouts was using helpouts to do what's called telepresence. So it's not just, video between here and there. It's making it more like you are physically there. You have a physical representation there. Yeah. I know it's important for people at Gate 52 to hear about their flight to Los Angeles, but it's interrupting me at the moment. So what telepresence is physically putting you there, or putting a representation of you there physically. And it's been toyed around with a lot. One of the things they demonstrated was a robot arm that would physically play chess with somebody else. They're sitting on the other end of a hangout. Now, I saw this, and was originally like, well, we did that 2.5 years ago. This is nothing new, really. You know, back when Hangouts were new, when the Hangout API was new, we figured out how to do that, and we pulled it off. We did it. And then we lost interest in it because there wasn't, you know, a lot going on with Hangout apps. So we kind of forgot about it. And it seems like the Help Out guys rediscovered it and are trying to bring it back. And they're not doing anything, like I said, they're not doing anything new or different than we hadn't done then, but they're doing it. And if they actually do it, I think that'll be good, not just for Help Outs, but for Hangouts. So I'm cautiously optimistic on that. Have we gotten any comments, by the way? It seems like it's been awfully quiet this evening. And I don't have comment tracker turned on. So, okay, so
Sly says, speaking of Glass developers, can anyone recommend any books about Glass development?
why do I have a funny feeling that Sly is trolling me, or is being a shill for me? But, you know, I do have these really nifty Glass developer stickers that I liberated. Those are pretty cool. And, you know, I do have this book that I recommend. It's Designing and Developing for Google Glass by Jason Salas and me. So I always recommend that. Jason, during I.O., and in fact, I was taking copious notes during all of the Glass sessions. Jason was waking up very early to watch the sessions in Guam and taking further notes, and I believe he has already started on the editing, the much-needed editing that we'll need to do to the book to reflect some of the announcements that were made. Anything else that you saw in the comments? Cadeas?
Nope, that was Pam took the one I was gonna point out to.
So let's see, we've already talked about Google Plus and I/O, and yeah, you know, actually, Sai's question leads into the other thing that I had on the list for tonight from the I/O was that we did see everything we saw about wearables was targeted not just to wear, but to glass as well. And I thought that was kind of encouraging, both in showing Google's long-term commitment to this product.
So I have an interesting question, real quick, before you finish.
Sure.
They're coming out with this this Android TV, Google TV, whatever, and then they're going to have at least 3 watches, right? LG, Samsung, and Motorola.
Yep.
And they have glass. What are the chances that the operating systems are similar enough that if you develop something for glass, you can also use it on your watch?
It's funny you should ask that, Pam. It's almost like you were reading my show notes or something, or my conference notes or something. Very good. And there were 2 major things that I think we learned from this. The first is that the Glass team and the Wear team worked very closely together in designing Wear. So Wear learned a lot of lessons from Glass about what will work and what doesn't work when it comes to glanceable interfaces and contextual interfaces. So all of that stuff that went into Glass went into Google Wear. So Wear is starting out as a little more polished of a product than Glass did. And I think that's very much to its benefit and very much to Google's credit that they didn't just start over and reinvent everything. They put some thought into it and did some lessons. Really, this has got to be the most annoying announcement to hear over and over again.
Please report. Thank you for helping.
Thank you for helping keep our airport secure. So what we learned, one of the things that we learned in one of these meetings is that if you develop something for Wear, in the near future, it will automatically, it will work with Glass directly. So Wear notifications currently that go to the watch will go to Glass as well. dismissing them in one place will dismiss them from the other place. So they're going to work seamlessly together.
What? Okay, that isn't necessarily ideal, right? There are situations where you might want a notification on your wrist and not on your face, or you want a notification on your phone but not on your glass or your wrist. So there should be some kind of flexibility there.
And that part is mainly up to the software developer building that particular platform, I would say.
No, not currently, Kadeas, because the way Wear notifications work is they're tied into notifications. So right now, any application that makes a notification to my phone, that notification shows up on my watch, whether or not they built it that way.
Right, but that's if you use Android Wear. But if
No,
you're using your API, that doesn't happen.
Okay, that for starters, that's if you use Android notifications, not Android Wear.
Okay, okay, I'll give you
that's a key thing to understand. Yes, if you take advantage of some of the more advanced aspects of Wear, those will be targeted just to Wear, and there will be some things that are targeted to each platform specifically. But the way I'm like to kind of paint it for developers right now is that if you are looking to have things that run just on glass, we have a GDK. If you're looking for things that run just on the watch, don't even need your phone, we have the Wear SDK. If you're looking to do things that are Android-based and will send notifications to any other device, we've got Wear notifications, and currently those work with the watch, and they will work with glass. And if you want to do things that are web notifications, we have the Mirror API for that, and right now that is just glass. So developers have a lot of choices about how they want to deliver something.
That is interesting because from what I got from one of the sessions was if you develop for the Android Wear, your notifications are going to be able to be transmitted everywhere. I think Timothy Jordan was the one that did that one.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, but and if you did so it's interesting that it's still. I walked away with the interpretation that slowly but surely everything's going to migrate to being more GDK Android Wear than Mirror API, but it'll still be there. That's the interpretation I walked away with it.
No. Each one has very, very different applications. GDK will not run on Wear. The GDK makes certain assumptions about the underlying platform. And it basically provides APIs that are specific to glass.
I'm sorry. That's what I meant. I meant Android Wear is going to be able to send everything to everything.
The Android Wear, there are a number of different components to Android Wear. One of those components, Android Wear notifications, will work everywhere. Other components, what's being known as the Android Wear SDK, will not work everywhere. That is only designed to run on watch-like devices right now. It is the rough equivalent of the GDK. It is not the exact same thing, but they are analogous to each other in that it runs on the watch. It provides some very watch-specific functionality. So is that...
Does that answer your question, Pam? I guess it does.
Does that answer your question, Kadeas?
It does. It does.
So yeah, it was encouraging to see things like that being talked about and discussed at I/O, with the clear message that again, it's their goal is to create the right tools for the right job, for the right aspects, and sometimes that's going to be glass because glass does things that a watch can't do. Sometimes that'll be a watch because there are advantages to having it on your wrist instead of in your face. And I think those are where we're seeing Google shifting itself to. So that was I/O. Any other questions about I/O? Shame Dan had to step away because he'd be bombarding me with questions, I am sure.
And looks like we don't have any in the comments there, so
I guess this is going to be a very quiet week. Oh darn.
interesting.
So next up, in some other news that we had, this crossed our desk late this afternoon and evening. Google Voice is clearly not dead yet. They're doing some research on it and trying to improve it, which can shock just about anybody. But apparently it's not dead. Not dead.
Me.
And people who they've started up a program where people can allow their voice messages to be scanned by a machine in an effort to improve voice transcription. So, any thoughts on this, Dan Orcadeus?
Well,
Pam Orcadeus?
what I'm starting to realize, the more I start getting more and more people talking to me about Google Voice versus Hangouts and why hasn't it merged yet and the whole 9 yards, is I'm getting basically nobody's going to be satisfied even after this merger happens. They're not going to be satisfied because everybody has one expectation, and me even looking at Google Voice versus and trying to merge those, I don't even see how those are going to work. How that's going to work. I realize this is going to be a massive mess when it's all said and done, and nobody's going to be happy. And I don't know if that's even the best move.
Well, why don't you see how such a creature could work?
Well, I could see how with Hangouts you receive the. Oh, that's you. I can see when you receive a text message, it shows up in Hangouts. A voicemail kind of makes sense showing up in Hangouts on the big list. But there are some other key features that, like for example, there are certain things about voice where you have you have certain ways that phone numbers ring based upon a group setting, and there are a lot of aspects of voice that I don't see jiving with Hangouts very well. And so I just find that it's just going to be a lot of angry people when this merger is complete.
Well, I'm hopeful that those parts will be kept more or less as is, and that most of the integration with Hangouts has to do with individuals making calls in the text messaging aspect of it. I think there's one of the reasons why we haven't seen the merging yet is I assume not done with making outgoing calls as seamless as they would like. Right now that's still kind of big and kludgy. But I could see merging voice into Hangout, what we call Hangout video calls right now, in the sense of letting you do multi-person voice calls. That's something that voice does do now, if I remember correctly. It has three-way lines. Mm-hmm. Doing that in the context of a Hangout.
Yeah, see, it's the massive.
Makes sense if they do it right.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's gonna be a massive change. I foresee anyway, Hangouts actually taking control of phone calls as well. So we have these right now. We have 3 apps. We have the phone calls, really a couple more. If you want to phone calls, we have Google Voice, and we have Hangouts. And I can see this kind of doing this merge thing, and you're doing everything through the Hangouts app, even though it's not quite the Hangouts. Like if you're just trying to make a traditional phone going through the Hangouts app, and I can see this. I can see this mesh of things, and I can see a lot of angry people when it's all said and done.
But we already have that mesh of things. I mean, when I make a phone call now through my phone, it has this pop-up that comes up and says dialing via Google Voice, and that was done transparently. So I can, assuming they do it right, and I realize that can sometimes be a stretch, but I'm optimistic here. Assuming they do it right, it could be done just as transparently. And it could even then say, okay, when you start doing multi-person versions of this, that it just transparently migrates you into a Hangout video call. Now, maybe that's foolish optimism, but I think it's
You don't see the
interesting.
phone, so you don't see the phone button going away and becoming Hangouts. That's what I'm starting to realize is about to happen. Is that more than likely everything's going to be running through Hangouts.
I don't think the phone button will go away simply because there will be mass confusion. So we'll still have a phone even if it's just an alias icon for a Hangout. You know, in the same way we have a Photos app, and yet it starts Google Plus. Just starts it on a different screen. Same thing.
Yeah.
You have any thoughts on this one, Pam?
No.
You don't use Google Voice, Pam?
No.
I would actually be shocked.
So the whole time that you guys hung out with me for what, 2.5 days, did you ever see me take a phone call?
Did you ever see me take a phone call?
Yeah, I don't use the phone. No one calls me on the phone. I have no need for Google Voice.
So what's your main source of communication? Is it texting? Is it some other messaging app? Is it Hangouts? Is it Google Plus?
Texting.
Texting.
I would have to say texting, like my kids and my husband. Texting, yeah.
And you're texting
And
directly.
I do not enable SMS or MMS or whatever. I don't enable that for Hangouts. So
Okay.
I'm not getting text through Hangouts. I don't want to cross the streams. So I keep them separate.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I'm old that way.
No, it's funny just because the last 2 days I've been having conversations about whether it's messages, should you be using messages or Hangouts or just everything about this whole thing because everybody was expecting something from I/O out of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I think that's one of the things that is a little disappointing and surprising. You know, we got a voice-related announcement and a Hangout-related announcement after I/O, both of which are understandable. Neither one was a developer aspect, and yet there are developer angles to both of these products which have been lagging in recent months, and I find that somewhat disappointing. And I'll say that to Chi. So I've got no qualms about saying that to him.
Well, if you had to choose, Alan, one thing that they would fix about Hangouts, one thing that they would finally get right, what would it be?
That's a good one. I'll think about it while this announcement goes on.
I would say the load time, but I think they may have fixed that once it rolls out. I just haven't gotten the rollout to me. But I'm thinking the load time is something that I would fix. When you're just getting a voice call, but it's coming through the computer, I would want that to not take 20 seconds to boot and more closer to 3 to 5 seconds.
Okay, I've got two answers to this, which I realize is weaseling out a bit. As a person who uses Hangouts, the thing that I know two answers for developer too. As a person who uses Hangouts, I think the thing I would most like to see, or at least most like to understand, is the current visual layout of things. And I could see the developer angle on that is it would be nice if there were ways to reorganize how it looked visually programmatically, so that I could create Hangouts that had different visual representations to suit other needs. Because this works okay in a lot of cases, but it doesn't work okay in every case, and there might be instances where a picture-in-picture would work really well. Some of the visual effects that Dan does would be really nice to have supported directly in Hangouts. And some are more difficult than others, but I would hope it's not terribly difficult. As a developer, what I think I am begging for the most is a way to actually have better Hangout app discovery. Because I think there's a tremendous amount of potential for Hangout apps right now, and have always had a tremendous amount of potential, but we've only really seen 3 or 4 apps ever created that have gained any sort of vague traction. And I think the reason why is they're just too difficult to start and create and get going with.
And both of those are examples of Hangouts on the computer. What about Hangouts on mobile?
Well, let's see.
They use
Supporting
a
apps
lot of
on
data,
mobile.
right?
Supporting, let me just answer Kadesh. Supporting Hangout apps on mobile would be nice at all. So yeah, that would be good. What was your question, Pam?
Hangouts use a lot of data if you don't have access to Wi-Fi, right?
If you're doing video, they use a pretty decent amount of data, but not a lot. And certainly you could go with, well, that's another thing. I don't think you can control your bandwidth usage on that one, but it usually scales down fairly well if it detects you're on a more restricted bandwidth. But yeah, it could use up a lot of your data. Although Kadeus just did that, did the Hangout from Android Park, so he would know best of all how much data that used. Go look that up for us, Kadeus, won't you? So we're now joined by Matthew Rappaport.
Hey, what's up, guys?
You came at a pretty good time. We're running out of topics. So,
wait, I didn't get to tell you what my one Hangout improvement would be.
What would you want?
Truthfully, I would like them to go back and create a way for us to discover Hangouts easier, rather than the way it is now with the little thingy at the bottom. If you're invited, but you still don't get to see the ones where you weren't specifically tagged, but you're still invited, and you definitely don't get to see any of the public ones. And I've looked around, and I have to tell you, it's not easy to discover them.
It's not easy being green.
This is an interesting problem, and I agree with you, Pam. Let me be clear there. But it's an interesting dilemma. I mean, I remember back when it was really, really easy to discover Hangouts. Everyone was complaining about the fact that Hangouts turned into very low quality because everyone was joining them, and it was all crap. So what you really wanted was a way, you kind of want two things that are mutually exclusive. You want a way to be able to hang out with your friends, and you want to be able to hang out with people who you want to be your friends who you don't know yet. And I'm not sure anybody can really pull that off. I think they went way too far in the other direction, but
I disagree. I feel like Hangout Canopy was a great solution. My Hangouts and Hangout Canopy worked for how long? And they weren't Google, they were third party. So how come other people can get it right?
Because Hangout Canopy was used by an incredibly limited number of people. It was self-selected.
And it works until a whole bunch of users jump in there, and then you run back into the same problem. It's not Hangout Canopy was only good because of the size of users.
But it did work for the amount of time we were using it, did it not?
Right, for a small community, not a massive.
The problem is the Hangout Canopy community was self-selecting. People who used Hangout Canopy were the people who wanted to find others, and people who permitted their Hangouts to Hangout Canopy were the ones that only wanted those people in there. So it was a small bunch of people, all of whom knew each other, all of whom wanted to find each other.
I found new people and new Hangouts in Hangout Canopy, so I don't know if that's totally accurate. It was a small community, but we are small. The people that hang out, generally, that aren't doing meetings and aren't just with their family, that's a smaller community, isn't it?
The problem was when Google implemented the similar thing, basically exposing you to every public Hangout that was out there,
right.
It was flooded. And that's a demonstration that a very, very small community were using Hangout Canopy. And if you opened Hangout Canopy to every user on Google+, you would have found the exact same problem of incredibly low-quality Hangouts.
Even if it was using the same circle ranking and relevance and mutual friend ranking, things like that? Okay. Or can I not talk, or just you?
Oh, we're just waiting on the announcement to go so he can answer your question.
No, I have a lot of background noise, so I.
Are you at the airport?
Yes.
And more announcements. And then to answer your question, oh, there you go. Go ahead.
You could have answered it, Kadeas. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, to answer your other question, the Hangout that we did, because that's the only use out of the hotspot, it was 1.5 gigabytes. So that 45-minute Hangout was about 1.5 gigs.
Okay, so, that was quite a bit. Nothing to sneeze at. I do think you'd still have the problems, because what people would do is, even when you're talking, limiting it to your circles and limiting it to relevance or ranking it by both of those, since it's not going to limit it that way, is that you're still going to have people discovering, well, you're still going to have one of two things. One, you're going to have people saying what they say now, that nobody's joining and nobody's doing anything. And two, you're going to have people complaining about the fact that everyone seems to be showing up, including these people that all they want to do is, flash themselves.
Well, I feel like those are problems that are going to exist. They exist on every platform, don't they?
Yes,
With videos. So.
Here's the thing. We had those problems. People said, Google, you need to do something about these problems or women are going to stop using Hangouts. Google did something, and now everyone's saying, Google, you need to do something about this problem because nobody's using Hangouts.
Google's an adult. They can make up their own mind. I mean, come on. Well, they can't. They should be able to, but they use our feedback. But I think that the Canopy or the My Hangouts, I mean, the funny thing is those things did things way before Google did. They let you find Hangouts, your friends. They let you see locations, circles. They let you use Mo and his. He built a camera. It had an album. All that stuff before any of it existed natively by on Google.
And that's fine and normal. The problem is when they went to scale when they went to address some of these things, they tried to do things at scale, and things like Hangout Canopy do not scale.
I don't think Google has that much of an interest for strangers to hang out with each other, do they? I don't know.
I don't think they have a reason to forbid it anymore.
I'm not forbid it. I'm just saying it's not a priority to them. I'm saying.
Well, but they had it. They made it. No, it's not a priority, but in the same way, they do want to connect people to each other. That is important to them. And using Hangouts to connect people to each other is an important way to do that. The problem is, how do you do it at scale, and how do you do it in a way that minimizes the number of people reporting other people, because that's something they need to act on as well.
Well, what about a solution where while you're online, you can have a feature that you can check or not, or it's default that says I want to hang out. I'm available to hang out with this feature, and other people check it. I know you're looking at me like crazy. I don't know what it is. We already have it. What are you looking at? What?
That's what Hangouts that was introduced a year ago gave us. The I'm available tag. That's there. It was done. Everyone hated it.
No,
hated it.
I'm not. I don't. That's not. I don't think that's what I'm talking. We're not talking about the same thing unless I didn't know that. My point is this: is that Google, when you open your Google Plus tab and you want to hang out, and there's other people that want to hang out, and it will look through the people and match you with people that are recently mutually circled, maybe that you've never hung out with, or we have that. Oh.
Well, no. Here I turn around and say that's not what you were asking for originally.
Because I wasn't finished, but I'm trying to say that to use Hangouts as a way for you to encourage you to use a Hangout to talk to new people that you circle, that maybe you mutually circled would probably be the best thing, right? I don't know. I'm not. I'd have to be.
I get what you're going there with that one, but that doesn't. That's not a. How do I, foster public Hangouts? That again turns into how do I foster private Hangouts with people that I've circled?
Well, because I feel like that's for most people that's a better way than a public Hangout, because, like you said, how do you stop a public Hangout from being the Wild West? Like, you can't control who's coming in there. It's public. So, right?
And I think that's what they tried to do, and they got flack for trying to do that. I really think Hangouts are a no-win situation for them. And despite that, they're still trying to do it. That's the part I find amazing.
And that's why I kept saying when they do this merger, it's still not gonna be. You see, I just feel like it's still not gonna satisfy people. It's only gonna create more hate when they do it. They already got hate for not doing it, and then they're gonna have hate for doing it. So.
Well, they're gonna have hate for everything, and so yeah, I don't know. I just think maybe also that new car smell wore off a little bit for a lot of people, and you know, because there were people that were hanging out. Me too. Let's be honest. A lot of us at the beginning, we were hanging out so many hours. The first summer, first year, plenty of people still hang out, but I think for the most part, not to the same length that we used to, and that could be for a number of reasons, but.
You know, I'll admit, I must be weird. I hang out more now than I did in the early days.
All right.
And the reason why is
if you
how
including
I hang out
private, including.
Yeah, of course
No,
I'm including private.
I mean not including on air. I'm saying only private.
Not counting this show, which is
Okay.
an aberration in so many ways, and an abomination in others. Not counting this show, I hang out more now than I did then. Now, I hang out more in private now, and then even then, most of the time I hung out in private because I'd join a public and I'd get bored in about 5 minutes and I'd leave.
But do you consider extended circles a private hangout? Or your circles a private? Like if I mean, that's the other thing too. What's the definition of privacy? That's another issue that Google's had, especially with the post. Now we have shared only with you finally. I mean, so they've been, as far as like defining what privacy is, what's private, what's not. I mean,
it's always been clear what's been private and what not. I think they've labeled it more to make that more clear. But I think when it came to Hangouts, you know, let me put it this way, most of my Hangouts these days are scheduled, they're by invitation only, and we almost never invite anybody else that wasn't invited in the original calendar invite.
those are more like meetings. You don't, but I'm talking about serendipity or
Yes.
spontaneous. You don't have those, right? Much.
I never had those in the first place. I always
Okay.
hated them.
Oh,
I thought
did
they
you?
were- oh yeah. With rare occasions, I rapidly started avoiding them.
What was your issue with them?
They were boring.
Okay. Is it because of the people? I mean, like, why are they? Was it with the same people that you scheduled hangouts with? Why was it? What do you think was boring?
No, I schedule, the ones I schedule with are much more interesting people, with a couple of exceptions. Amanda was a pretty fun person to hang out with, and I don't hang out with her anymore.
I don't know how much she hangs out.
But, for the most part, the people I hang out with more even are fun to talk to. That's why I hang out with them.
But wouldn't you do a spontaneous hangout with those people that are fun to hang out with?
Would I? The
Yeah.
problem is, I would say no, but mostly because, while all of us are spontaneous people in some ways, we also have a hell of a lot going on with our lives.
I'm not saying on the regular, but yeah.
So would I just, spontaneously hang out with Cadeas? Probably not. He's a cool guy. I like talking. Cadeas, don't get me wrong. You're a cool guy. I like talking to you. But, on any given day, would I say, hey, it's I got nothing else planned for the next 30 seconds? Might be cool to talk to Cadeas for those 30 seconds. It's just not how I work.
Well, I mean, and they did try.
That's fine. I get it. That's fine.
They did try the hangout with this at the bottom of each post, which didn't work either. Start a hangout about this post, which was I get the idea, but I think like it
wasn't well thought out.
It wasn't exactly. It was short-sighted. A lot of things.
I get why they tried that, and they tried it because there was this idea that if you have a post that a lot of people are talking about, a lot of people will spontaneously come together and talk about it. And the truth is, that's not how people work when they get posts.
Right.
They don't spontaneously come together to debate. They spontaneously post.
Well, that's another reason why people thought Google didn't necessarily get social, because who thought of, like, a team had to think of the idea, they had to sit there and talk about it, they had to agree upon it and implement it. And so a lot of those things you wonder.
Well, that one, I think it was an interesting experiment, and I think that was a worthwhile thing to try. I think it failed, but okay, it failed. That's fine.
It's almost like, it almost seemed like a hang-up.
Trying something and failing is not a bad thing.
No.
Not trying something is a bad thing, and trying something that fails that you don't acknowledge fails, that's a bad thing.
But I feel like it was almost like a hang-up version of Sparks. Jason's here.
Welcoming Jason Solis. Jason, how are
Speaking
you doing?
of who hangs out with you on occasion, I've been watching. I've been watching for a while. I actually just wanted to jump in because I think I can bring something to the conversation about how the dynamics of Hangouts have changed in the last coming up on 3 years and everything. For somebody like me who's on the other side of the world and who doesn't really have a big peer community for the industry to which I belong out here, I mean, it's been wonderful that I can be able to meet people like Matt and Pam and Cadeus and Alan and stuff like that, and to be able to do so at no cost other than for the internet access I already pay for. So I mean, it's cool, and probably unlike Alan, I am one of those people. It's like, I've got 30 seconds to 4 hours because I'm a loser, so like I've got nothing else to do. Let me call Matt. Let me talk about Saturday Night Live.
Why not?
So, Jason, actually, you and I are an interesting example because a lot of our meetings aren't really all that scheduled. They're a little bit more ad hoc, but it's still, we're sending each other a message first to say, hey, are you there? And if so, let's meet for a few minutes to talk about this. But that's still different than, this video chat always being there. And
I think it was that. Well, because Matt kind of like flew the flag for several months. Like Matt, remember we were in that one hangout in year one that everybody, kind of like in our own little enclaves tried to say, hey, Christmas is coming up. Wouldn't it be cool if after we do, the family thing, or for people without, big Christmas plans, let's see if we can actually keep one public hangout going for 24 hours. And, various people jumped in and out, and that was kind of like the original kind of like hangout community. Like for the really hardcore people, if you will. And I know that you were a big one, and you were even shining light on the fact that maybe as we got into like month 7 and month 8, even after year 1, it was like, wow, like the whole, like you said, serendipitous hangouts and everything kind of, really started to fade, and people didn't do that much, like, just, hey, let's go meet like a bunch of total strangers and everything. Partly because of what Alan said, because, I mean, there was trolling, there were people flashing themselves, there were people just, jumping in and being inappropriate. But also I think it's because, folks had to get back to their regular lives and had to, go back to work.
And they also found their own groups too.
Yeah, I remember I shared information or feedback with Vic and Dotra back in the early days, and I said, as someone who's in the communications field, it's a phenomenal transformative experience for me because somebody who's taught to, if you're going to interact with a bunch of people, much less strangers, you want to at least project somewhat of a professional, polished image, and yet you jump into hangouts with people you've never met before, and I said, you can talk about, the most wild and wacky topics with complete strangers. You can. I remember the first time I was in a public hangout with Robert Scoble. The guy was like half naked. And he was lying in his bed, and I was like, "Hey, that's cool." And you can do hangouts with total strangers.
Scoble, isn't it?
Huh?
I said that seems to be a thing with Scoble, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, history's kind of proven, But I mean, I've been in hangouts where people were just talking about in that that Christmas Day hangout that went all day and all night. People were saying, well, as it got really, really long, people were falling asleep in the hangouts, and they're like, okay, well, don't talk too loud because so and so is taking a nap, and you can see them, actually sacked out on their love seat, and people were saying like, hey, how about we talk about something that really deeply affects us? And people were talking about how they lost family members and puppies and grandparents and loved ones and everything to terrible disease, or people had people incarcerated and put away for a long time, and they got really, really emotional. And just for me, I was like, wow, I'm actually doing this with a group of people I've never met in real life, that I'm probably never going to meet in real life, and just like the way well, of course, like Matt was doing like a bunch of meetups and the hurls and everything, but that also too. I mean, how has the hurl community and everything like kind of sustained, or has it?
I mean, it's not really. People don't usually plan big hurls. There are occasional ones, but like Alan just had with Pam and everyone at I/O. There are events. I think people do. I mean, call it a meetup, call it a hurl, call it whatever you want. But yeah, the idea that Hangouts escaped the boxes, and like Sarah Hill says, the boxes, and we met. That still happens. But I think part of it is the Google Plus. I don't know what to call it. Just that all this time has passed, and I don't know. I think people just either got their groups or got sick of whoever, and people connected across Facebook and Twitter and other social areas. They connected on just maybe Gmail. Maybe it's possible a lot of relationships that were in Google Plus, people are pinging each other in Gmail or Hangouts in Gmail, and they're not necessarily on Google Plus, or they're emailing each other,
Or maybe the conversations went private.
Or that too. Well, privately. Yeah.
And as we've seen, there's that one. Was it her last name's Fraser. Oh man,
Stacey.
Lucia said.
Stacy and Brandon.
Yeah, Stacy and they actually met and they fell in love on Hangouts, and they're engaged now, right? Or are they married already?
No, engaged. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are people that also got married and got divorced. There are people that have broken up. There are people. Yeah, all kinds of things. Sure.
That's what happens when you create a social network that models real life.
Yeah. To pedal back for a second, something you guys were talking about maybe about an hour ago when Alan was saying, I don't really get the whole point of, like Android TV when it came out. What my big interest, and you know where I'm going with this, don't you? And I thought Cadeas' feedback was really cool because, like, I was one of the original.
Over here, and it does very well. You can definitely mirror it, but it doesn't work. I do that now, actually. So
I don't understand why they brought Android to Alan or Cadeas or Jason. I mean, unless you want to join or a lot of Hangouts.
Smartphone, and it would plug into your smartphone and give you all of these, plug into your cell phone and give you all of these additional features for your cell phone, when that's not what it was. The long-term goal of Android was to replace the cell phone with a generic smartphone operating system. In the same way, the goal of Android TV is to replace the many, many different TV operating systems that are out there today and replace all of those with a single unified operating system underneath them all. Is that, and part of that is that it includes Chromecasting. But Chromecasting is a very tiny piece of the bigger picture.
Yeah, but if you have Android TV, you don't need a Chromecast, isn't that correct?
No, you don't, because it has a Chromecast built into it, really.
But if you have Chromecast, you might not need an Android TV. Okay.
Hang on a second, guys. I'm getting a message saying the stream died.
I don't know. Where's Dan?
He's fading in and out of the picture.
Yeah, he's back.
The stream died.
Dan, did the stream die?
Yes.
Hang on. Give him a moment.
We were actually at that was actually the very last topic we had, actually. No, we were just saying, like, how do we end the show without Dan? Oh, the show's back now, guys.
Oh, okay.
How much of it was not?
All of it was there. It's still all gonna be there.
The stream continues. So you don't need a Chromecast because it essentially has a Chromecast built into it. That's one of the features of Android TV is Chromecasting. But Chromecasting is but Android TV is supposed to be a lot more than Chromecasting. Mind you, I don't think it's a lot more that is good. But
I mean, you're gonna have the search features and the extra facts that Chromecast doesn't have. But what else in games? I don't really know.
Well, let me throw something out there. Cadeas, as someone who, like me, who drank the Google TV Kool-Aid in version 1, And I thought it was interesting because the product manager Rishi Chandra was the same guy who 3 years ago was on the I/O stage touting up how dominant and how transformative Google TV was going to be, and now he came back on stage and gave a really good presentation about what Android TV is supposed to do and that whole model. Were you?
NBA Jam was not a good presentation. Can I just?
That was the other guy. But are you any more sold on what they're trying to do with integrating the web or the internet on TV now, or were you more impressed by the model they had the first time around? Because personally, I thought the approach they were taking the first time around with Google TV was a little bit more impressive. And it seemed like they had a better idea, even though like right now it's like, okay, well, we've learned from our mistakes, we're going to pivot, we're going to go in a different direction. To me, it seemed like their goals were a little bit more achievable, I guess, the first time around.
Yards. Everybody else was shutting them out. Hulu works, then it didn't. HBO worked because then you could do it through the website, then HBO shut that down. And so Google TV was getting shut out, and just forced software developers to not spend the time on it. And so I honestly feel like even still, now I officially unhooked it and it's on the top shelf, and I did that maybe a month ago. But all the way up until then, I've always used it and loved the really just the YouTube interface. I think that's still the best YouTube experience.
Why did you stop using Google TV?
I'm sorry?
Why did you stop using Google TV?
I stopped using Google TV.
It stopped working.
Because, yes, exactly. We went from like maybe, for me, I think maybe 7 apps that I would actually use on Google TV, and then they just started getting shut out till pretty soon I only had 2 that I was using, and then as well as it used to, and then YouTube was crashing all the time, and I couldn't figure out why YouTube was crashing. But when YouTube's working, it's the best YouTube experience that YouTube's ever presented. But yeah, it doesn't work well, and it crashes.
Now, Jason, you said something about Android TV that I don't know where you got this from. You said, you asked Cadeas if he thought they were going to bring back this internet TV experience, and I'll be honest, I didn't hear them use the word internet at all when they said anything about Android TV. It was
involving the cloud in the TV experience is what I meant.
Where did they say cloud in the TV experience? I just, maybe I missed it, but this is not trying to replicate TV on internet. This is trying to replicate cable boxes. Advanced
right, and that is true. This time around, at least when I looked at everything, one of the things that you didn't see was the Chrome browser. The Chrome browser wasn't available, at least from what you could see with everything that they did on stage. There was no Chrome browser there. I mean, if anything, I would say the Chrome browser the games replaced the Chrome browser. Like it seems like they're not looking at that, which I understand. I mean, how often do you actually use a browser in real life?
Here's where I'm at.
Devices. So
there was my big gripe with Google TV, and well, before I say that, the interesting thing is because you boxed up your Google TV and you put it in the in the closet, like you said a month ago. 2 days before it actually happened, I mean, I still run my it's right over there. My Logitech Review first generation, and 2 days before I/O actually happened, for some reason, inexplicably, Pandora's Google TV app got updated. First time in like 3 years, they just updated. I have no idea what was there. I got to check the change log. But the browser was the one thing that I tried to use all the time. When I first got it, I was like, okay, this is cool. But obviously, you try and do some of the more higher-end web things, like you try and run WebGL, which is trying to run 3D motion graphics in a browser, and it would crash it, and it couldn't do like a lot of like really high-end HTML5 stuff. And it ran really, really slow, and they never kept the version of Chrome on Google TV in at least somewhat parallel with how Chrome was being developed for other platforms, for mobile and for the desktop. So it lagged. It was woefully inept as far as capabilities, and then yeah, it just got to the point where you couldn't use it anymore. I mean, you can browse and you can do stuff, but I mean, if you try and open, like I tried to do stuff where like I was programming or something, or I had Google Drive open and I want to see like a different section for my stuff, it would always conk out. But for me, the browser was a big thing because I wanted to actually use I wanted to have web access on my TV. And I guess what I was saying when I said like either the cloud or the internet, just being able to like because what did the product manager do? He said, okay, well who won the Academy Award last year, or who played Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games? Okay, Jennifer Lawrence. And it came up. That's really cool. I'd also like to use other internet services.
Here's the problem. It's kind of cool. I'll grant that. How often do you do that? How often is that really a feature that you want when you're
you and I are never going to agree, Alan, because remember, like I'm the guy that always uses the browser on Glass, and apparently nobody else.
There's a browser on Glass, really?
Yes,
there
is
is.
a browser on Glass. And
That
Jason,
was not native though, right?
Yes, it was. It's always been.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
It's not quite always been.
When
though,
you had to Google something, didn't you? It only came up when you Googled? Okay.
No.
No, you just need to get to a URL. It's been there for a very long time. Jason and I have an entire chapter dedicated to it, and most of it we're disagreeing with each other. But here's the thing, Jason. It's a cute feature. It's cutesy. It's gimmicky in the same way that QVC 5 years ago was talking about how awesome these interactive TVs were going to be because they could put a product up on the screen and you could click one thing to find out more about the product and click another thing to order it, and nobody cared.
I'm happy with my Roku.
That nobody cares about.
Does that not mean that people out there won't find some sort of utility from it, though?
People will find all sorts of utility in a Betamax tape. That doesn't mean that Betamax should survive.
Let me ask you guys this prediction: will Android TV be successful in your opinion, and will it do better than Chromecast?
I have no idea. Honestly, if the games, I think if the games really step up, I think that it'll make it at least stay around a bit. But I think games is the only thing.
And
thing that's listed we already have on all other platforms, so I don't see it staying around.
Because if you want to do things with games, because games is a subsection of the app market where people are going to willingly pay good money for at any given moment. If a game's good, people are going to buy it, and happily so. And also the growing concept of people wanting to not have games be physical media or downloaded files that they have to store on an app, and have games actually be streaming entities from soup to nuts. You can actually stream the game at really low latency, and the input control is very responsive. It's just like playing a game that you either run off a DVD or you download and install on your mobile device and everything. If you can stream a game like that and make it multiplayer, multi-platform, and everything, that's a major.
But is that more attractive than Xbox Live or PlayStation? Or it's a different audience?
I think if Steam steps up and makes a platform for it, that it'll make it a little bit more viable. Steam's got to come up.
To answer your question, Matt, in my opinion, I think the Android TV is going to be marginally successful, but I don't think it's going to surpass Chromecast. Because the price point and what it does, and the fact that it's portable, and the fact that it basically works, and now you don't have to be on the same wireless network and everything like that. That was like the slam dunk hardware product they've ever come out with.
What did you just call the most slam dunk product they ever came out with? Okay, I'll agree with you there. Here's the thing. The Chromecast took a concept that was incredibly stagnant and had a really crappy UI, and gave it a really awesome UI. It needs a lot of work still, but it really took television and did it in a whole new way. Android TV takes the old model of television and continues to use the old model of television. It introduces voice search, and that's about it. It's minor. It's really, in a lot of ways, a kind of so what. It just doesn't add anything new to the picture for the user, and that's why I think it will. I don't think it's going to fail, but I don't think it's going to be the smash bang that you think it is.
You do know you guys can cast pictures and videos using a Roku as well. And I don't know, maybe Amazon Fire, I have no idea. But I wouldn't be surprised if you could. So why is one better than the other? I don't know. I guess it's personal preference.
Cost-wise, cost.
Okay, so it's half. So it's half the price, but is it?
And it's
not
portable.
But it's not necessarily as fast.
I think the big deal about the Chromecast versus the other products is the way you control it. I don't, the fact that you're controlling it with a device that you always have on you, that you're going to be able to control it with your watch, that you're controlling it now with your smartphone. That's an incredibly powerful change from a Roku or an Apple TV,
There's an app
where all of
remote.
them, but for all of them, they come with the remote, and that's what you're expected to use.
Right, but there is an app remote. So
I didn't know there was an app remote for Roku. As far as I
There
know,
is.
nobody uses it.
I do.
And I think probably the biggest thing that I always come back to is the price point and the fact that it is portable. You can take that to a friend's house, or you can take that to.
But there's a Roku.
You can take it to work and plug it in there, and it's still going to work.
It's not like there
Except if
isn't
you go-
an equivalent thing for a Roku.
That's
There's a
the.
Roku stick.
Say again.
There's a Roku stick. I think no, but here's the thing, Matt. That's a remote control. It's just a remote control that's sitting on your phone.
Right.
The difference is that the Chromecast says this concept of remote controls, where the arrow interface is a really crappy interface. It's a bad way of doing things. We have that because that's what we started out with, because that's the only thing they could do then. We have better technology now. Let's use the better technology as better technology, and that's what the Chromecast is trying to do, and that's what the Android TV is going in the other direction.
Let me just, with just one point, I have a Chromecast. I bought it to try it out, and my Chromecast on my HD TV does not produce HD quality video like my Roku 3 does. So.
I will concede that because I don't know your setup.
All right.
And I won't disagree with it.
Does Chromecast cast HD quality?
My understanding was yes, but
Mine seemed
otherwise. I don't know.
Okay.
What did you say, Kadeas?
I said mine seems to cast HD.
Yeah, you can actually get. I mean, if it's not full, I don't believe it's 1080. I think you can go like at 720.
But I just found YouTube. YouTube seems to be lower quality, but and some videos are. But I'm talking about the HD ones.
And again, I'm not going to dispute that. Are there issues with the Chromecast? Yes. It's an underpowered device. It can be pretty slow if you're trying to do canvas rendering events, for example. I saw a really neat display with a Chromecast. One of the things that was at I/O was that there were 5 people. Each one had a tablet in front of them. Big screen in front of us popped up a trivia question. The 5 people were responsible for answering it as quickly as they could. Fastest person to answer would get the most points, and so on down. Answer it correctly would get the most points, and so on down. That was all controlled by a Chromecast. The tablets were just the interface. The Chromecast was the central controller. So for next to nothing, you're able to create an interesting game, and it was a pretty interesting game. So the Chromecast is more than just streaming video. There's a lot to it, and we saw new announcements.
If you're doing technical demos and you're trying to show something that's happening on a phone, and now that you can actually mirror what's happening on your mobile device, and
It's
we've
like an
talked
overhead
about
projector, right?
exactly that completely replaces the need for you to have an overhead and to have like a screen, whatever. Just slap it right into some HD TV, and there you go.
There's a guy behind you, Alan. It's pretty funny.
Yeah,
He's
well,
like,
that happens in a public place. He doesn't know.
Yeah, I know, but
I'm
I know.
sorry.
But give a funny one.
Did you guys talk about the fact that Glass Explorers aren't going to get the original Glass Explorers aren't going to get the 2 GB hardware?
No, we haven't talked about that. Mostly because I keep forgetting. I don't know. It's the usual issue of Glass Explorers griping, I think.
Was there a demo with
what are your
Sergey that you went to? Sorry.
No, I didn't see Sergey this trip.
Oh.
The only time I saw Sergey was the picture of him going down the escalator, with the people around him completely oblivious.
So how does that strike you, Alan, as an original Explorer? and as someone who's done like quite a lot of work in that space, the fact that there's now new hardware out there, and obviously they're upping the specs to be able to run a different version of Android that is more resource intensive, and it's going to alleviate a lot of the performance problems we're seeing right now. But the first generation Glass Explorers aren't going to get that for the amount of money that you plunk down. Is that just par for the course, or?
I think that it's being overblown in a lot of ways. The dramatic change in resources. It's a 15% larger battery. Is that what they were saying? That's a number I vaguely remember from somewhere. That's not going to be your big issue. Certainly at the rate battery, people are complaining about battery consumption. 15% is not going to get you a lot more time. The increased memory, will it help? I'm sure it will help some. Will it help a lot? I don't think so. I think the problems that we're experiencing, I think, are at a much, much lower level. Will these help? I'm sure they'll help somewhat. Are they as big an issue as some people are making them out to be? Look, if you are loading all sorts of glassware onto your glass, and if you're loading all sorts of GDK-based glassware onto your glass, and you're not paying attention to what you're loading, and some of it's garbage and some of it isn't, yeah, the extra memory will certainly help you. I think that's more a problem of the software developers, though, at this point, honestly. And I think most of the problems we're seeing are software problems, not hardware problems. They're just trying to throw some hardware at it because software developers are idiots. And I say that as a software developer.
Just out of curiosity, sorry.
Do you think we're going to get to a point where glassware vendors are going to have to preface their products and say, like, warning, this is only going to work if you have X amount of RAM? And I hate to use the word fragmentation, but are we going to get to that point where you say, like, this game or this real-time augmented reality glass application requires a certain amount of resources that not everybody's going to have, and we almost get to, like, not everything backwards compatible. So now we get the Super NES versus.
If we do, then we have bigger problems, and that's the fact that we've got people making glassware that is bloated and inefficient. If we're really at the point where we've got glassware that's that bad, we've got bigger problems. What were you going to say, Matt?
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, Matt. Well, so no, again, what's your feeling, Alan, on the fact that someone like you, who's been a first-generation Explorer, isn't going to get the new hardware? If you want it, you'd have to essentially buy glass again.
My feeling is that the fact that they continue to refer to this as XE Charlie kind of implies to me that, well, two things. One, they don't see this as a huge change. This is just the fact that, they could get larger batteries cheaper than they could get the old ones. They could get more memory cheaper than they can get the previous ones. I don't know their thought process behind this, but it really seems to me to be that they did this switch not because they were trying to get a performance improvement or trying to do any of these things, but that the manufacturing dictated that they needed to go this way in order to continue manufacturing the product at all.
I was just going to say, when is Alan's flight? Is it soon? Yes, it is.
Relatively soon, and I thought they were just making the announcement for the incoming aircraft, but it's not quite here yet. So I have a little bit more time.
I know exactly where you're sitting, Alan. You're sitting in like one of those cool little like table kiosks and everything, like that's got like the power ports, and you've got all sorts of like really cool things. I saw those all over the place. SFO is so awesome.
Yes, I like this, and I actually have good Wi-Fi this year, unlike in past years, so I'm able to do this report. So how do I feel about it? I can see why some people would gripe a little, but honestly, I don't think that this is as big as people are making it out to be. And if they, the real question is going to be, is this going to be the consumer level hardware? I don't think we've reached the final iteration of hardware yet. And are we going to be expecting them to release, to provide us with the next version when there is not necessarily a compelling need to? Because I don't think there is. I don't think the fundamental problems that we're having with Glass today can be solved by throwing more memory or throwing a larger battery at it, especially not throwing a larger battery at it. I think these changes were dictated by manufacturing realities, not by software realities. To give you a point, though, Jason, game consoles. The first day the PlayStation 2, and I'll call it the PlayStation 2 for a reason, came out. The number of chips in it, there were, if I remember correctly, something like 60 chips in it. The day the last PlayStation 2 rolled off the line, it rolled off with something like 5 chips in it. And yet it was the same PlayStation 2. There were more to it. There was more to it, but the basic system was the same. No, you guys are allowed to talk while I'm muted.
Yeah, I know. Otherwise, the show is like dead air, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can hear you. You're allowed to talk about what I say. This is, I'm not.
Well, I was only going to ask. I'm thinking about the idea of all these devices. I'm thinking about, obviously not everyone's going to wear all these devices, but you talk about the developers. I mean, someone walking around with Glass, with the watch, their phone, of course, a Nexus, a laptop. I mean, at what point is it going to be too much? And do you see? I mean, you're going to see people walking around with the Glass and the watch, probably.
Possibly.
Excellent question.
They're interesting complementary devices. I'm looking forward to seeing who is the first one that integrates the Glass and the watch, so that I can swipe in my watch and Glass will move along with it. That's kind of an interesting concept that I'm looking forward to. That I can tap my watch to take the picture through my Glass. That would be kind of neat as well, because that's
the watch does not have a camera, right?
No, the watch does not have a camera. At least the current generation don't.
But when it does, hey, boom.
I honestly think that would be a poor interface, but
Okay, watch picture.
Welcome to San Francisco.
I met a guy at this I/O Extended that actually was working on a keyboard for the watch, which a better keyboard than the one using scrolling actions. He seemed to love it. I thought it was weird. Do you think there's going to be a need? Is there really a need?
Kind of like swipe.
Yeah, because he was saying if you're in the middle of a meeting and you actually want to use your watch, you can't talk you can't really talk. I don't know.
At that point, you have your phone.
Well, you would hope.
If you don't have your phone,
no, I don't mean. Now you would hope you would have your phone. You would hope you would use your phone. I'm saying that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. I was about to say because your watch isn't going to work without the phone.
I meant you would hope that you would use.
Here's the thing that people are slow to get it about Glass, and I was really hoping they would be faster to get it about the watch. First of all, was this Zach Friedman that was doing this?
Oh no, Zach wasn't there. No. This was New Jersey. I was in New Jersey.
Good, because Zach does really cool stuff, and I would hate to hear that he was doing something as silly as this.
I thought it was silly too. I was like, why?
But it seems sort of up his alley. No, I mean, this is what I was really hoping people would understand now that Android said it instead of Glass saying it. The watch isn't meant to replace your phone.
Right, none of it is. They're all add-ons, yeah.
Well, the Glass isn't an add-on in the same way. But even there, it's the whole point of this Android everywhere aspect is not to say that we're going to shove the same form factor, the same usage patterns, the same everything into every single device. It's that we're going to find exactly the right way to do the right things at the right time on the right device.
Right.
So attaching a keyboard.
They can't do that on Google Plus. How are they doing it on Android? I don't know if that was a good question, but I said. Because Android's been around longer than Google Plus.
They can't do, they couldn't do it on Google Plus because they did not have the right people to do it. And I don't mean engineers. I mean
social
management. I meant management. You know,
But ideally, Google Plus would work where you would get what you want when you want it, when you need it, something, whatever you just said, something like that. Right?
Well, that's a slightly different angle. But my point about Android Everywhere is that you're building, and this is most obvious in the car example, I think, is that the interface for the car, it felt Android-like, sort of, but it was clearly a very different interface. It was more tuned for what you need to do in a car and the way you do it in a car. So it was going to work with your steering wheel controls. You wouldn't need to reach for this touchpad. You would be able to use it from your steering wheel if your steering wheel had those controls built into it. There were other components that worked the same way. So it was tuned for your car in the same way Wear is tuned for your watch, in the same way the Glass is tuned.
And they all run off your Android phone.
And they're all Android, and they all work together in a Google ecosystem, but they're all distinct.
No.
Alan, let me ask you something about use case, because now that obviously you're wearing. Oh, did we lose him?
Yeah, he froze.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we lost Alan.
Okay, so until he comes back, here's my theory. So he's wearing Glass and he's got the watch on, and at the very least, we know that the Gmail application works on both of those. So when you get a notification, you hear your phone go off in your pocket, in your back pocket, in your breast pocket, whatever, and then obviously you hear it on Glass, and then you feel like a buzz or okay, Alan's there. Okay, so Alan, assuming that you get.
Sorry about that. My Wi-Fi disappeared.
Okay, so now that you wear Glass and you're carrying around your phone and you've got the smartwatch on, when you get a notification, hopefully within like a couple seconds of each other, when you get a new email, which device do you use to respond to it?
It goes
to
phone, right?
I would say whatever's convenient at the time, right?
Yeah, it depends. I almost never use the watch to respond because I find the interface to respond generally clunky.
Okay, well, not to necessarily reply. If I wrote you a message right now and you just got a mention or like a ding that a message came in, what would you use to check that message? Just to see who wrote you.
And while he's frozen, a follow-up: does it ding in all three freaking places at the same time?
It does.
That's annoying. There you go.
And okay. So Kadesh, since you've also you're rocking all the gear. What's the latency between, like, if I send you a Gmail message right now, what would the latency be between when you got a phone on Glass and on the watch?
It varies, honestly. I mean, I'm sure it's a lot of network related things, but it varies. There are times where they're all simultaneous. There are times where they kind of stagger a bit. So and when I say stagger, I'm talking 3-5 seconds. I'm not talking like 30 seconds to a minute. Yeah. But I mean, in as far as checking it, it just depends on what I'm in the middle of that determines how I can check it. If my
is it overkill though for you to have it all on and having the?
Not necessarily, because once you if we were talking Hangouts, once you reply from that one device, all your notifications continue to go to that one device. That's actually what I was demoing earlier, Alan. When I kept saying send me a message, that's what I was demoing. If you have 10 devices sitting here signed into the same Hangout account and you receive a message, they're all gonna go off simultaneously. But if you let me pick up the Nexus tablet and I reply, every message from that point on is going to come from the Android, the tablet. All the other ones won't ding. Now the issue with Android Wear is that if the device you pick up is paired with the watch, then Alan has said that it's going to continue to notify on both that phone and the watch. Am I back there, Alan?
I think so, but I haven't played with it too extensively yet. So, Jason, one of your questions, I think, to me would kind of boil down to... What was that?
Because when you test a message around, that's the best way to test that. See how long Yeah, see how long it takes to get on your desktop and then arrive on glass and maybe like the phone.
Yeah, I've
that
tested that also.
varies. I've done that
Yeah,
extensively.
it's a couple seconds.
Yeah, but generally, and more often than not, I'll get it on glass before I get it on my phone.
There are times when that too.
As far as which do I use to respond?
Your phone.
It depends. These days, I tend not to use my glass to respond because its performance is pretty bad. But that is a performance issue, not a convenience issue. I have not yet responded on my phone because the interface is too clunky. Or sorry, on my watch because the interface is too clunky. So what I'll usually do is I'll tap on it till it says show on phone, and by the time I fish my phone out, it's already up there waiting for me.
So you send one of the camera responses.
No, I almost never use the canned responses.
Oh, okay.
Did they say something about the camera on the glass being improved? Like there's a zoom or something? I didn't see the whole.
There's an app that does that now. Which one is that?
Maybe I saw something. Maybe I'm a mistake. Today's is like no way. I'm like, all right.
No, I
it was the world's worst spy camera, right? That's what they called it. The one dude.
No, they frame it. They frame it now. That's what they do. If you need a viewfinder, it's framing it. That's all it does.
You see that app? It's not official. It's not a MyGlass yet, but it's called a Live Lens, and it lets you broadcast like live, but you can only share with your Facebook friends. That's actually got you can swipe back and forth on the trackpad, and it's actually got like it fakes optical zoom, but I mean it does pixelate and like the image breaks apart. But that's the first time we've actually seen somebody try and implement zoom technology on glass. I know the two of you are going to go off on me for that, but at least somebody tried to do it. Because basically right now we've got a stationary camera that if you want to try and do something, you've got to basically go to the subject you're trying to shoot at near point blank range and then try and stay as still as possible. I mean, the viewfinder is a really cool thing. I would like to see somebody, put more work into the zoom.
I think the viewfinder is vaguely interesting. My problem with Zoom is the same as my problem with the keyboard. If you think it's a good idea, you're not understanding the problem.
And if I need to zoom that bad, there are other cameras that I can take that's going to give a better picture.
Okay,
Hang on. I've heard one compelling, even vaguely compelling case for Zoom, and that's you're not really going to take a picture. What you're doing is you want to use it as a telescope. Okay, that makes a big sort of sense. But I don't know. I don't see that as compelling.
The only zoom that I've seen that's useful is word lens when it finds the text that it's looking for and it zeroes in. That's the only necessary zoom I would think that type of use case makes sense to me, but not a photo.
But then of course that's not user controlled. That the app does that on its own.
Right.
And that's a good thing. That's my point.
Was there any glass demo at I/O? Maybe I talked about this already. That was showing you something you could do with the phone, with the glass, that you didn't realize people were doing, or something like you mentioned, Cat.
That's actually a really good question, and Jason can probably answer that almost as well as I can because he was watching it live. There was a session by Hi and Pi, who were the engineers. They're engineers on the glass team, who last year ran the session voiding your warranty. This year they didn't do any warranty voiding, but each one demonstrated a project that they did to demonstrate some of Glass's capabilities. Pi demonstrated a recently released football that had sensors in it. So he was kicking around the football and showing the Glass app that he wrote to read those sensors, and he talked a little bit about how he read those sensors. Hi showed us a little bit of a Glass hack where she mounted a camera to a bicycle helmet pointed backwards. So she gave herself a rear view mirror through Glass. And she discussed some of the things that she needed to do to get it to work.
I was shocked that she was able to
trivial.
solve the electricity problem. That shocked me.
What, that she ran into an electricity problem? Why?
No, that she was able to solve it. The way she solved it, I was quite impressed because I wouldn't have never thought to use a USB.
Because I saw a demo at this IO Extended where they had a motorcycle helmet running on Android that gave you like it was supposed to be for safety, but it showed you like a view of your rear. It showed like the rear view, and it showed you like your mileage, and they were talking about possibly using like detecting radar, and they were saying how this device could not just be used for like motorcycle helmets, but possibly for bicycles and football helmets and all kinds of helmets. So that was kind of cool, the demo that I saw. But
Okay, wait. I want to bring up something before Alan jumps on his flight, because I'm really interested in seeing what everybody thinks about this, right? So we talked about the fact that that the glass camera is basically stationary right now, and if you want to zoom, pretty much the only thing you can do as a user is physically move closer to whatever you're trying to shoot, right? I thought it was very, very poignant how now Shazam is an official glass app, because I've been waiting for that for a while. We wrote about this in our book, What Happens When Shazam Jumps In. But the problem I have with Shazam is I want to see how people are going to use that as glassware and as a wearable computing application. With the two use cases that really make Shazam shine is when people use it out on the field, and if they're like my friends do it all the time. They have Shazam on their phone and they hear somebody like a red blast, so they hold their phone out and they get that song and they wind up buying the phone, or they're at a concert and then they hold up the phone and then they wind up getting whatever that song is. So there's that, and then the other use case is how is the glass version of Shazam going to work in the lean back experience, so that if I'm sitting here and my TV is 10 feet away from me and there happens to be like a song, or like Shazam is very popular with commercials, and I want to be able to listen to that, because the mic picks up so much ambient noise, I don't want to have to get up on my TV's speaker just so I can identify that song. And that's how I'm really interested in seeing how glass will solve that problem.
I have used the Shazam app, and it seems to work fine. I'm not leaning in and doing it. I think that's people overdoing the use of trying to figure out the song. Like, if you're in a restaurant, you don't need to hold the phone up to hear it. The phone's going to hear it sitting down, and I think that's just a thing that people's got to grow into, because with glass, I've used the Shazam app 5 or 6 times in weird scenarios, and I just stand there. I don't twist any kind of special way, and it still gets the audio just fine. And it was doing that with when it would do it in the Google Now search thingy before they got rid of it, of glass. It would pick it up just fine. You didn't have to do anything special. It does a good job zeroing in.
Does it work now for US-based people? Because remember, when it first launched, it was only good. It would only identify songs if you were in the UK. Have they lifted that restriction?
It's identified songs. Since I've started using it, it's identified songs fine.
Okay, because I know at the onset it was only good. It was only good for the UK, so I got to try that again.
So just out of curiosity, I just want to know what the most impressive. Because Alan, how much time do you have?
Maybe 2 minutes.
I don't know.
So did you already say what the most impressive thing was in the I/O keynote? Like what you were most impressed by in the I/O keynote, as far as what was
the most thing? Well, can I say about all of I/O, not just the keynote?
Okay, sure.
Cardboard.
And that was supposed to be, that was kind of something that just kind of like the end of the keynote, like, oh, by the way, you're all getting cardboard, here you go. Like, they didn't really go into it in the keynote.
Yeah, at the keynote, he didn't say what it was. And as we walked out, we all got this cardboard, and we still didn't know what it was until we actually started using it. And it's awesome. It really is one of the most brilliant things about, hang on.
Yeah, I believe Kites, you got a cardboard, right?
Viewmaster, right?
It is so much more than a Viewmaster. It is really cool.
It's supposed to represent like virtual reality. City. Kites, weren't you at I/O too? No? Alan said we could talk when he's muted. Okay.
No, I can hear you, man.
So quickly, no, yes, it's a Viewmaster. It gives that impression of a Viewmaster, and that's kind of a cool aspect about it. But if you remember it was a month ago, Samsung announced their partnership with Oculus Rift, and they talked about how their hardware was going to be this big head-mounted display, and you stick your Samsung phone into it. You remember this? That's what Cardboard is, except Cardboard does it for, a few bucks.
So it's supposed to be a riff on them too?
Well, what I have a feeling it is that a couple of Google engineers saw Samsung do this and said, I could do this with Cardboard. And they did it in their 20% time. to prove that it could be done.
And what did it actually look like, the result?
I should have packed my cardboard in my bag so I could show you, but it looks vaguely like a ViewMaster viewer made out of cardboard. That's actually a fairly accurate description of it. But you stick your Android phone into the back of it.
Right.
There's an NFC tag on it, so it triggers the phone to start the cardboard app. When you close it up and put it up to your face and select one of the apps, it does some VR stuff. It does some Photosphere stuff. So one of the app choices is Photosphere. Select that one, and you're seeing your photospheres. And you literally turn your head around looking at your photosphere. And then you click the clicker on the side, and it goes to the next photosphere.
It's a virtual reality viewfinder.
Yeah. It also is, since it's stereoscopic image, there were apps that demonstrated. Windy Day was an app, for example, that was done by Motorola a while back for, I believe, a Motorola the Motorola Start Screen. That was on there as a 3D story. So there were a lot of things along those lines that you could do, that you can do with it, all just using your smartphone. So with this, they rolled out an API to let you do some of this stuff. There are some experiments using the Chrome experiment system. So a lot of neat stuff can be done with this, and I think it's just, and the fact that it can be done cheaply and easily, I think is encouraging, because you could give it to an 8-year-old and they can build it, and then they can make their own videos with it, and
right.
Just
and it's completely different than Glass. I get that, but I think it's kind of funny that it is humorous that Glass is what $1,500–1,600, and here they are handing out cardboard that cost like nothing. I'm just saying, same company, different.
Watching the webcast of the keynote though, and not actually physically being in the room, you could hear the crowd almost
laugh,
have like this exasperative like awe when they found out that like there was, oh yeah, and by the way, you're here at I/O and we always give away cool stuff, so you're going to get one of the smartwatches and you'll also get the Moto 360, and by the way, when you go out you get cardboard. Have a nice I/O, everybody. Everyone was like, okay, that's it.
Right.
And in my opinion, having never gone to I/O, but having watched the keynotes, as an observer and watch it live and everything.
Jason, can I quickly interrupt there, because I'm going to be boarding shortly? But to answer that, yes, but I think that this was a tone that was actually carried through all of I/O, and I'm going to need to write something about this. Is that I/O changed focus this year, and it changed focus for the better. It was a lot more developer-focused, which threw a lot of people, even threw a lot of developers. So the fact that we didn't see Google Plus mentioned, the fact that we didn't see Maps mentioned, the fact that we didn't see Search mentioned, the fact that we didn't see Gmail mentioned in the keynote, and the fact that we didn't see Glass mentioned was a little bit surprising, but not overly so. The fact that we didn't see all of these consumer-level mentioned. The fact that we didn't see all of these, we didn't see YouTube mentioned.
What's Blogger YouTube? No, I know. I'm saying all.
The fact that we didn't see all of these consumer-level products mentioned should not have been a surprise. The whole affair was somewhat lower key, not as grandiose and hyped up, but still had the same kind of energy that it did in the past. And I think people, the past couple of years under previous management, people came up with an expectation, and that was a bad thing in the first place.
Although I just want to say real quick, Sergey did do that skydiving Glass demo, and that had nothing to do with previous management. So a self-driving car demo.
That's true. A self-driving car demo. Well, here's the thing: that skydiving illustrated a consumer product. Illustrated a product that was going to developers, and I'm okay with grandiose, cool stuff. I kind of think the car that they had on stage, that was kind of cool, and I think that's appropriate for developers. But last year demonstrating some cool things that were going on with photos. Was I just photobombed?
There was, yeah, she was cute though.
I think that was an intentional photobomb. Showing off photos, developers didn't care because there was no API. And that's the difference. This year, almost everything had a direct API to it, and that's the difference from previous years.
And they have been releasing Google Plus features the day after, and then today they did. So, and
Right.
probably on Saturday they will too. So.
I mean, I think
So okay, so Alan, having been, this is what, your 5th I/O, your 6th I/O?
my third I/O.
Oh, okay. How do you think this stacks up? In particular, I want to focus on the last 4 because that's really when Vic came into
No,
into
Vic
the public.
created.
Yeah.
Vic created
So let's
I/O.
let's basically go back to just the last 4. So from 2011 to right now, how would you rank this, or how would you rank the last four I/Os in terms of the impact, in terms of the entertainment value, and in terms of
I don't
how successful was it?
I don't want to, and the reason why is because, let me put it this way: last year, 2 years ago, it was something of a developer's I/O still. There was a lot lost, but I felt like I felt like everyone who was there was still getting some development use out of it. Last year, I didn't have that same kind of feeling. It was more of a show.
And to be fair, I say what you will about Vic, but he is, I think, probably more. He presents better, I think, than probably.
I will readily admit he is great on stage, and there are a lot of things I like about Vic. I even think Vic is a good manager. I don't think he was the right person for Google Plus, though.
Sundar was really funny at the beginning of this year, though. Like for the first 10 or 15 minutes, he was really funny. He started off on a high note. I thought he let it off very effectively. He dragged it in the middle, and it got really long-winded towards the end. But he was funny.
But nobody.
And it wasn't just like a bunch of. It wasn't a bunch of prepared jokes. I thought he was just he was going off the cuff, and I thought he was a good point man for that.
But no one really gets on stage and gets the energy. Vic is great, but having that 5 minutes of Sergey, nothing's like that when he jumps on there and just says impromptu, we're going to do something like that, is usually the most exciting.
Okay, guys, it's time for me to go.
Have a safe flight.
Thank you. I hope you all have a great Google Plus week. Talk to you later.
Have a good flight, man. Okay, here's one thing. Okay, Kadesh, did you go to I/O last year or 2 years ago?
No, I didn't. I only watched online.
Oh, okay. Okay, so having covered the last now 4 I/Os, right, for work, I was really interested in how they presented this one because I/O 3 years ago was when Vic really, emerged, and everybody even outside the tech sectors, they were like, okay, well, that's the guy, and obviously Google Plus really kicked off and everything, and he's a really he comes off as very friendly, very approachable, very very accessible. And then 2 years ago was when, as Matt noted, that's when Sergey had his big, he cut in, and then they had, the skydivers, the glass, and they did the abseilers down the side of the building, and they did the BMX bike guys and everything. And that was, like Alan said, I/O was transformed. It wasn't even a tech conference anymore. That's the kind of thing that they do with the MTV Awards. It went so far beyond what the average tech conference does. But then also when you had Sergey take the stage and then talk, his personality really came through. He's much more the showman, and he was very.
He's not boring. That's the thing.
Yeah, and he's very, he's very in your face, and he's very, it was all about presenting, and it was selling. I mean, look at how many people he got to actually plunk down $1,500, even though that blew everybody out of the water, and they're like, my God, $1,500. And then the very next year is when Larry came out, and nobody saw that coming. He's very much the more stoic of the two, and he's the guy
more interesting to listen to though than most of the presenters.
Well, I think that's that's kind of subjective, but he's and I enjoyed listening to both of them. But Larry, he kind of looks at the floor a little bit more when he speaks. He's very a little slower when he presents, a little bit more methodical. And there's nothing wrong with their approach. I just think the conferences in the last 2 years, it really reflected the personalities of those 3 people, and that's why I was wondering this year, everybody knew it was going to be Sundar's show, what the general vibe would be, and how that would come across. Because it was okay, it was Vic 3 years ago, Sergey 2 years ago, and Larry's show was last year. How would Sundar, how would his voice carry over this time?
Would you? I mean, but wouldn't you say that with everything else that's happened over the last few years, it's probably a good idea for us to go back to back to it being more about developers and development as opposed to,
I'm
or
fine
as
with
Kevin
going-
Bryan went on to say, he wanted to see more swag and stuff like that. Like, I mean, shouldn't it go back to being more about development and developers as opposed to, hey, I want to get to IO so I can get some free stuff, or 'cause that's
Google
essentially.
Plus. That's fine. I just think, it's fine that it's developers. I just think the way it's presented, I think that, Vic, Larry, and Sergey are the most interesting. Sundar is okay. Hugo was a little even more interesting than Sundar, I think. I just think that most of the presenters are boring. I like the way they present. That's just me. I didn't get a sense of passion. I didn't get a sense of excitement. I didn't get a sense of, like when they were doing the Xbox thing, like, oh yeah, he's gonna get me free beer. I'm like, the dude saying he's gonna get free beer is a dude that makes what, $1 million a year or whatever he makes. Give me a break. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, come on, like, you work for Google, you're talking about free beer.
Well, and keep in mind that Google is only like 15 years old, and the gold standard against which every technical presenter is ever going to be held is Steve Jobs, which is like the rarefied air, who was like the ultimate showman. And then at around the same time as him, where you had Bill Gates style, which was more, he gesticulated excessively. He paced the stage, back and forth as he was talking and everything like that. Both of them had very distinct personalities. So every single tech presenter from now until the end of time, until you have somebody at that level, is going to be compared to those two. And most people won't live up to that expectation, I would think.
I guess, but Sergey, like, I just would like to see people, break that like teleprompter thing that Sergey, and maybe they don't have the freedom to do that, but like, it's just that Sergey does, where he's like, oh, I don't know if it's gonna work. We're gonna try, like being excited. You could see it. I don't know, like, it's not there, and maybe they don't need to do that, but.
And I thought Cadeas asked the best question, and that's the one that has to be asked the most. Is how has IO changed over the years? And I think like Alan said, it definitely went away from the focus was still trying to be a developers conference, but there were so many admin assistants and marketing people and people that are like in social media, quote unquote, experts and SEO people that went there that aren't necessarily programmers or architects or engineers, and they just went there because they want to photobomb with Hugo, or they want to take a selfie, having a drink with Vic, or they just
or
want,
even do a protest.
And there was protest, which might have been the most interesting part, right? Robots.
That was the undeniable subplot, the whole thing, because I watched that live and I was chatting with Alan. I was like, what was that all about? Was that staged or anything? He goes, yeah, it's a protester who jumped up, and started going off. But that's The Verge actually had really good coverage of exactly who those two people were and what they were protesting.
Right. Which neither had to do with development, but because IO gets so much media attention, that was a perfect place to get your.
Yeah, I think the perception of IO went away from being a software developers conference, and it became more like a generic tech conference that anybody thought they could get into. Remember, a couple of years ago, if you wanted to get tickets, you had to like kind of fill up, like go online and do like a puzzle, or just do like a computer science like experiment, and figure that out. As a programmer and everything, I would think that my colleagues would be happy with this year, because it was just all about the breakout sessions, and it was very engineering focused, and if you can hang at that level, that's cool, because it's all about that crowd. And I think they really went back to the roots in that regard. The keynote, as for leading it off and kind of like setting the tempo and everything like that, like I said, I think this year was probably the least entertaining of the last 4 years. If I was going to
Snooze Fest.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, I don't think the protest was interesting, but I don't think I don't think anything at the keynote that they announced was something that was not previously kind of announced, as far as besides cardboard.
Right, but that's the thing. It doesn't need to be about that.
Google has made. Google
right, and I'm glad that this time around they didn't do that, because it doesn't need to be about that. It needs to be more about development. There's a time and place for that.
To be fair, they set that standard, and they said, hey, and that's why people expected it, because they said, Google Plus this is only 3 years Google Plus has been around, and they've released a lot of things. They had Morning with Google Plus, but the last two I/Os, they've released the most features at the last two I/Os for Google Plus than they've ever released before. So it makes perfect sense to me that someone would be like, oh, well, another I/O, more Google Plus releases. And I think that was, you know, I don't know how they could counter it because I know they're very secretive about everything, even stuff that doesn't seem to be like they need to be secret about. Some of the features they release, like really, that's like, you know, like they're okay, but they're not. I don't know. They make bigger deals. They treat every new feature, new release like it's equal because it's a new thing, even if it's, you know, a camera in Hangouts.
So the counter argument to that is that the IOs, especially like in the last 2 years, they've gone so far out and they've done all these different projects, like with the Nexus Q and with Cloud Robotics and with Android at Home and everything like that really don't pan out in the short term. And they cover so many different topics. This year they did what, you know, arguably Larry did when he took over as CEO, and he goes, you know, we're going in a million different directions. We're just going to whittle everything down into like 3 or 4 basic concepts, and we're just going to concentrate on those, and we're going to like eliminate the cruft, and we're really just going to project an image of we're really concentrating on like 3 or 4 main ideas, and let everything kind of like flow from that. So if you look at it in that light and everything like that, you were probably very satisfied with the material of this year's I/O because, you know, it was a few key ideas that you could kind of, you know, keep pace with. Not like, okay, well, there's a design track, and then there's an engineering thing, and now there's this new polymer platform, and then there's home automation, and now there's artificial intelligence, there's vacuum robotics, and everything like that. You know, I mean, you find interesting, but you really can't keep tabs on. This year, it was, you know, you could actually corral all the stuff in your brain.
And Google doesn't really care about, I guess, what the media says. They just don't. And maybe that's good. Maybe that's good. Maybe that's bad. I don't know. But you know, the passionate users care about it, and that's what Google knew, that like we're not going to talk about Google Plus. We're not going to talk about Google Glass. They knew by not doing that, people were going to write the articles like they do, and they're like, we don't care. But it does kind of, most of the public out there, they read the articles and they say, oh, well, this article says Google Plus is dead, or this article says Glass is dead. And you know what? That's it. Then they're like, then it must be, even though we know that's not the case. And it just makes, I think, a harder uphill climb for the future. Do you not agree with that when it comes to these products?
I would say what it seemed like they really, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like what they really tried to concentrate on this year too was product lines that are definitely going to be revenue generating in the short term. So people, you know, the SDKs were then, you know, were all released, now they're publicly available, so people are already starting to work on things like that, and they can directly translate those into apps that are going to run on hardware that sells very, very soon, if not right now. And so they're going to make money right off the bat. Whereas before they were like a bunch of, you know, this is coming like in the next year or 8 months down the road, or this is a pipe dream, so, you know, at least start, you know, getting familiar with this, or this is something you can like mess around with. Right now, what they have are commercial platforms that you can start working with, you can start building with, and you can start making money with in the short term. Because it was also around no hardware platforms. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys.
Sorry, I missed the last part. You were breaking up a little bit.
Yeah,
Guam bandwidth. It's all of the talks and all of the sessions were about known commercial platforms, and it was all about hardware that's going to be immediately available and that developers can write applications for, that you can start selling and make money off of immediately or in the short term.
Right.
Yes. Yes, that's what it was about.
So was the sense, the air, the developer sense in the room, was it everyone was really excited then about what was next?
From what I could tell, it was the same. Oh, but let's do this because I don't even know how we're gonna do this. Well, we do need to end the show.
Well, we need Dan to end the show though.
Yeah, I know. So let's do this. Let's make a new hangout afterwards, and then we can just let this run out on its own. But we have 2 shows.
Actually, I got to run. I guess it's like 2.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. All right. We have 2 shows. Our Android Week, which is. Oh, go ahead. What'd you say?
Oh, is it good talking to you guys?
Good talking to you.
Oh, there's Dan. Dan can end the show out. Go ahead, Dan. All right, so we have 2 shows.
Dan is hungover.
We have 2 shows. Our Android Week, which is Mondays 9 p.m. on the East Coast, 6 p.m. on the West Coast, and then we have Google Plus Week, which is this show, which is 8:30 p.m. on the East Coast, and on the West Coast it's 5:30 p.m. So tune in next week. Tune in. What do we got Monday? Monday we're going to talk more about Android L. It's like Android Auto, Android TV, and Google Fit. Oh, we didn't talk about Google Fit at all today. And then we'll also talk about the watch. So tune in Monday and have yourselves a wonderful Google Plus week.